All right, everybody. Happy Friday. We will be going to some breaking news out of Houston where there was a huge scaffolding accident. We're hoping that not too many people are trapped. Good Friday morning to you. My name is Mike Page. We'll get you out to that breaking news in just seconds away, but we'll catch up on all the very latest headlines. We have Hillary Clinton doing a rally right now live. But first, let me take you to that scene in Houston. It is just a horrible, horrible sight to see this morning as we just start getting going on News Now. We appreciate everybody watching and starting the stream here with us this morning. You are watching a Fox 10 News Now breaking news situation out of Houston, where this is very close to Minute Maid Park, where a huge scaffolding accident has happened just in the last 15 minutes. We're going to have Ron Hoon join me right now. And Ron, what do you think about this?
Oh, man. I remember being on a construction site once years ago, and the guy saying, if somebody could come up with a better technique for building buildings than the massive amount of scaffolding that is required, anything that's greater than probably about a 2-story building, as you start going up, you got to have the scaffolding. He said, people have no idea how labor-intensive it is, and just the amount of effort that's required to put up the scaffolding. So the building hasn't collapsed. The building looked like it's standing there just as strong as ever. But boy, something happened with the scaffolding. And of course, through OSHA, they're going to have all their requirements of, to make sure that it's a safe workplace. But something happened that has led to Houston Fire Department getting out there on scene and doing whatever they can, because from what we're hearing, at one point there were reports of as many as 4 people that could be trapped in there.
Oh, I know. We're just getting a alert here, and it just says emergency personnel are searching for survivors after the scaffolding collapsed at a 7-story building under construction in downtown Houston.
Yeah. There are some reports coming out that they have managed to pull the rescuers have managed to pull some construction workers out, and at least 3 that have been rescued and are conscious. But there may be another. See, this is so often what happens, Michael, when you get right at the beginning stages of something like this. So you got reports of 4 people trapped. Now, you have 3 reportedly rescued.
Yes.
Does that mean a total of 7 were impacted, or a total of 4 and you've still got 1?
That's
the part that's still unclear right now.
I know. Everything at this point, it's always just so fluid. The information coming in here, just, wow. Could you imagine the noise it must have made, too?
Oh, yeah. Boy, great point. Yeah, no, that would have put a roar through downtown Houston. That is for sure.
And this residential complex is under construction. It's very, very close to Minute Maid Park, home of the Houston Astros.
Yes.
Who just got eliminated.
The boot by the Royals, correct?
Yep. They went Game 5 there, but man, look at this scene here.
Now, this all happened at about 9:10 this morning, our time. There's a good view of the firefighters are on scene. You saw one of the fire trucks, and then right in front of you right there, just all of that. But see, here's the thing. This is not the first time we've seen a construction accident like this. Because just the nature of scaffolding is such that it is a temporary structure.
Yes, yeah.
This was a complex that is under construction, huge new apartments right downtown. It's all part of Houston has the same thing going on that we have going on here in Phoenix, which is more and more people want to just live downtown.
Yeah, a little revitalization.
If you can hop on the light rail, you may not even need a car,
Yeah, sure.
So, and in the day of Uber and everything, there's just so many things that are lending toward people wanting to just live in a downtown area. So this is a complex.
And
I know there's one going, we have one actually real close to the television station here that's about 220 units. It's going to be big. This was going to be, or is, currently under construction at almost 400 units.
Wow.
It's huge, 397 units. And basically right across the street from the ballpark.
Yeah, unreal. And they're saying, what, in about 5 years that Houston might surpass Chicago as the number 3 in the country
Isn't that interesting?
for cities.
Yeah.
So it just keeps growing and growing in Houston. And
Yeah.
look at this downtown is a big part of it. But boy, they have a mess here.
You can't really visualize that day would come where you'd have New York and LA and then not Chicago being the third city, that it would be Houston. But you're right, the projection trends are really strong for Houston, as they are for us. We right now seem to, for whatever reason, kind of keep going back and forth with Philadelphia for number 5 or number 6.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, you could see a day here where the top 5 cities in the country are New York, LA, Houston, then Chicago, and then Phoenix.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But we're just hoping that...
they get that last guy out of there.
I know.
Yeah.
That has to be something. Wow.
Yeah.
I just can't believe what the noise must have made when that happened in that area. But it doesn't look like right on the main street there where the accident happened.
I know.
You would think there'd be more trucks lined up closer to there, right?
Yeah, you would. And I always, I'm always wishing that I was running the helicopter, because I always want to see the wider view so that you get.
Yeah.
If this really is right across the street from the Minute Maid ballpark,
I want to see it.
You want to see that, and at some point maybe they'll do just that. But a lot of photographers never want to miss the very moment, if in fact there's still one guy in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Although right now I don't see what you would describe as a beehive of activity.
No, it doesn't look like there's urgency right now with the. You could see some of the personnel in the far right, upper right corner, and it just seems like they're not really, moving too fast there. So hopefully, I guess we'll get word pretty soon, hopefully, that they got the last person out.
Yeah, now this is in contrast to maybe 20 minutes or so ago when we did see truly a beehive of activity. So hopefully they've got that last person out and it's all going to work out okay.
Man. Unreal stuff.
Yeah.
Images that we're seeing happening live in Houston right now.
I also see the most talked about name in the world of politics is speaking
yes.
live right now.
Yep, we are going to go to her in just a few minutes. Hillary Clinton speaking at a town hall event.
Oh.
So we are going to take that, but we just wanted to have a couple more shots here of this huge accident in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
With this scaffolding accident. We'll get you more updates as the day goes on, but let's go to Hillary Clinton right now.
Boy, she's had a good week.
She has.
She's had a very good week.
She has, and she's riding that momentum, so
we'll
see what she's going to be talking about at this town hall rally.
This will get the chat box going, won't
Yes, it will. Coming up right now, Hillary Clinton Town Hall.
Real progress. In Laconia, I had a meeting about this issue, and I was so impressed by the police chief, who has changed the whole way he polices drug abuse and drug offenses. Instead of sending people to jail, they are trying to get people into treatment. They're trying to match them with some kind of, mentor from the recovery community. And they are now equipped with the antidote to reverse heroin overdoses, Naxalone, known as Narcan. So we have to change the way we police. We need far more drug courts. Drug courts are so much more cost-effective than prison. We send a lot of people to prison for minor drug offenses. They come out full-blown addicts. We just are going at this, I think, backwards. So I am making this an issue because I really believe it's a public health issue. As I talked about 2 weeks ago up in Boston with the Attorney General and with the mayor. Mayor Walsh is a a recovering alcoholic and very willing to talk about it because he knows that if someone like him in that kind of position doesn't talk about it, then how will people know that there is something that they can do, some path forward? But for me, it's really about the lives that are affected. And
It's not.
young lady with the red scarf right back there against the wall. Here comes the microphone.
So I'm concerned by your support and endorsement of genetically modified crops in the biotech industry. I understand that there are many benefits to GMO crops, but what about all the risks? I'm not sure that there's enough research for us to be sure they're safe or for our bodies or our environment. Could you explain your support?
Well, I strongly support what the Department of Agriculture is now doing, which is to work toward voluntary labeling as a first step, and to have more information for consumers so that on barcodes or labels, people can actually know what's in what they're buying. I think that has to be the first step. The second step that I support that the Department of Agriculture is doing is preventing the proponents of GMOs from stopping states from setting higher standards. Because I believe that in an area, as you rightly say, we need more research, and consumers need better information based on the research we currently have, that it would be a terrible mistake for the industry to be able to use their influence in Congress to stop states from doing exactly as you said, looking into it, finding out more about it. And I want more research too, because I think you're right. There are some forms of this that are lifesavers. Drought-resistant crops are often genetically modified. And we don't want to deprive people in drought conditions from being able to grow crops that they then can use unless there is evidence, research that shows they shouldn't do it. But on the other hand, we need an ongoing system of doing much more to check out all the chemicals and genetic changes. And it's not just GMOs I'm worried about. We have hundreds, if not thousands, of chemicals that we have never tested to determine what their real impact is, or in concert with other elements or other chemicals. So I'm a huge believer in safety and in the right to know. And I think we are not doing enough on either of those counts. So right now, that's where I stand on it. I am not in any way just forward, no questions asked. I think that's not smart. But I'm also not. Okay. Oh, yes. I hate to not let somebody else ask a question back here, who's had my back. I've had my back to them the whole time. How about this young lady in the Keene State debate? I'm big on debates, so. All right, wait, I'll give you just a minute. Here you go.
Thank you. So I'm a senior at Keene State, and I'm majoring in Holocaust and Genocide Studies. And my amazing professors and classmates and I are wondering what your plans are for genocide and mass atrocity awareness and prevention, and specifically what the plans for the Atrocity Prevention Board would look like. Thank you.
Well, I have to say, I think, and maybe somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, I think Keene State may be the first college in the country to have a Holocaust Genocide Studies program, right? And I join in the applause. I think that's absolutely amazing and brilliant to have a specific curriculum to look at Holocaust studies and genocide, because we've got to have educated young people and others like you who are equipped to help us deal with a lot of these issues, because unfortunately we are living with them, and we have to come up with a better response. I was privileged to announce the Atrocities Prevention Board when it was first set up in the Obama administration. And I did it at the Holocaust Museum in Washington. If any of you have been there, it was the most appropriate, perfect place to make that announcement. And I will certainly not only continue it, but look for ways that its visibility can become higher so that more people know that the United States has this board, and that we will work to find ways to try to bring people together around some common responses to the potential for genocide, learning from the past. And there are so many both kind of theoretical and practical aspects to this that deserve a lot of thought. For example, we know that oftentimes in conflicts, ethnic, religious, tribal, other leaders of groups actually set these genocides or ethnic cleansing in motion. They use the media. We saw that in Bosnia, where people who had lived together peacefully for a very long time were set against each other through a propaganda effort on the media that turned neighbor against neighbor of atrocities. But we have to really analyze it, and that's why I'm so proud of the course you're doing. Like, what triggers it? What turns people against one another who have been maybe not loving each other, but not killing each other, and then all of a sudden something sets them off? And how do we try to have interventions that prevent that? And a lot of cultures are on a tripwire. Something can set them off. So how do we help other countries with the huge variety of cultures in the world understand what they need to do to try to prevent it from escalating? So I'm delighted, and I hope that those who are in this program and graduate from it will find, ways in our government, ways in international organization, in not-for-profits, to be really actively involved in helping us understand what to do to prevent this from happening in the future. So. Okay, right there, this lady right there. Yeah, right there. Yep. I guess somebody, yeah. Do we have a mic? Here comes a microphone. Yeah. yeah. A little more difficult to get through there. Here it comes.
Thank you for taking my question. Glass-Steagall protected the American people and the American economy for decades, and then it was dismantled, and we crashed and hit bottom. At the debate, you said you would not be in support of reinstating Glass-Steagall. I'm wondering why, and also if you become president, how would you protect us from rogue banks and Wall Street?
Well, I intend to do just that, and my plan is more comprehensive, more effective, and in fact tougher. And take a look at Paul Krugman's column today. Paul Krugman, who I think has pretty amazing progressive credentials, right? Basically said that I had the better side of this argument. Now, why did he say this? Because I fully respect my colleagues who have said, let's reinstate Glass-Steagall. And if I thought that alone would prevent the potential next crisis, I'd raise my hand and join. But that's not my assessment. Because if you look, as Krugman said today in his column, absolutely in favor of breaking them up if they become a risk to the economy. But the potential next threat to our economy that has to really be reined in is what's called the shadow banking world, the hedge funds, the money market funds. Glass-Steagall wouldn't do anything about that if it were reinstated tomorrow. So I have the greatest respect for my colleagues and former colleagues who are really focused on that. But I go further than that. My proposal, which you can go to my website and read about, goes much further and includes everybody that I think would pose a risk to the economy, including the big banks, but going much further than that. So that's why I've taken the position I have. And you can read Paul Krugman today to understand why. Okay. Okay, this young man I think has had his hand up for a long time, and he's got a cheering section behind him. He's brought his own cheerleaders who are...
Thank you.
Yes, go right ahead.
As a bisexual member of the LGBT community, equal rights has been a very important thing to me. You said that over the years your views on this topic have evolved. How do you compare yourself to other candidates that have remained firm on their views, and how do you think you've done to change from your past views?
Well, I think that if you speak with the Human Rights Campaign or any of the large advocacy groups, they will tell you that they count on me and that you can count on me. I was, I think, the first and only First Lady ever to march in a gay pride parade back in the late 1990s. So I have been an advocate, a vocal, visible advocate for equality and against discrimination.
All right, everybody, it is coming up on 10:30. Welcome, everybody, if you are new to the stream, or we know that there's been some streaming problems going in and out, so we appreciate you guys staying with us. My name is Mike Page. I'll be with you this morning and afternoon. Kinsey will be here this afternoon as well, and into the evening we'll be streaming from about 10 this morning till about 9 tonight, so it's going to be a big show. I do want to update you guys on the latest things that we are handling and looking at right now. The Houston accident, we're going to go back to live aerials. I do have an update for you guys on the conditions of the people that were injured during this accident, major accident in Houston, as well as the possibility of rain coming to the valley this weekend. We'll have the latest on that and the forecast. Then the U.S. Airways final flight is happening, and it's going to, the plane is going to touch down, the U.S. Airways plane is going to touch down in Phoenix at around 4, but it's already up in the air, taking its final flight, going across the country. Phoenix is one of the destinations that it will stop at. And then sexy Halloween costumes for moms. It's not what you think. It's a kind of a fun take on moms in general. You gotta love this story. It's a great one. And then the State Fair opens today, and we'll have the very, very latest on all the fun activities that you can expect this year from the State Fair. Gotta love it. But let's go back to that breaking news situation out in Houston. I do have an update for you on that, and let me just get this little lower third up for you. All right, let me read off this update for you. Emergency personnel have rescued 4 workers from beneath piles of rubble and twisted metal after a scaffolding collapsed at a 7-story building under construction in downtown Houston. The Houston Fire Department captain tells us that 2 workers were taken to hospitals after this morning's accident. Now, this morning, it happened just about 9:10 Arizona time, 11:10 local time there in Houston. The fire captain tells us that the people did suffer physical trauma. Those 2 workers did suffer physical trauma. So we are hoping for the best for those 2 workers that were involved in this horrible, horrible accident. And then he says 2 others have less injuries and are being treated right now at the scene. So we're hoping and wishing for a speedy recovery for these workers, as, boy, they're just trying to do their job this Friday morning, and tragedy strikes. Up here earlier, and we were talking about it, I was saying, can you imagine the noise this must have made? Wow. Unreal. So, once again, we are wishing for the very best for these workers that were involved. 4 altogether, 2 with minor injuries, and then 2 had to be transported to local hospitals there in Houston. as the fire captain tells us that they received physical trauma. Hopefully, they will be okay. Moving on now, I do want to update you on what we can expect from the weather this weekend in Arizona. Possible raindrops? Corey McCloskey has us covered.
All right, off we go, folks. So we've got lots to talk about, and there is plenty of weather going across the west. Some in Arizona, a lot in California. We'll get you in close here and show you what we're talking about. We've got showers here really kind of along I-40 from really east to west across the state. And some of that rain is becoming a little bit heavy at times as you get out west toward Kingman. But California has really been pounded with some tough times over the last 24 hours. Their commute home last night was rough. Mudslides. I-5 is closed up around Bakersfield. So if you've got plans to get into California sometime today, if you're heading up, say, toward San Francisco, you want to think twice about Interstate 5. You got to call ahead. Anyway, here's our story. Again, closer to home. In the valley, it's very quiet. However, as you get farther to the north, we've got some pretty good rain going on here between Seligman and Kingman there. So just keep that in mind. If you're on I-40, you'll be driving under some rainy conditions really the whole way. And once you get into California, it doesn't look a whole lot better. Old Route 66 or the 40 continues to work its way right over toward Barstow, and there is real trouble along the way. These showers have been relentless and very, very heavy. So all along the Colorado River Valley, it's going to be active today for sure. And then here around Bakersfield, these thunderstorms have been popping up all night long and much of yesterday evening as well. So I-5 is certainly going to be a problem. That's the road that takes you up toward San Francisco. So keep that in mind if you've got some California plans for today. But here in Arizona, our rain is going to become heavier as the day wears on, and then into tonight, that's when we expect to see the heaviest showers, scattered thunderstorms as well. But for now, the valley is up there with the good guys and gals at Luke Air Force Base. So your forecast for the valley shows you this. Today we'll finally make it into the upper 90s. Again, nobody wants to be there, but it's going to be a warm one. Again, showers, especially later in the day. And then tonight, thunderstorms expected overnight. They could be heavy at times. Tomorrow, the rain still with us during the morning hours, then tapering off as we hit tomorrow night. Sunday looks like we'll probably see a bit more sunshine make its return, and temperatures now.
All right. Thank you, Corey, for that update on the weather. And he was talking about California and that horrible, horrible mudslide and flooding that they got yesterday. I do have an update to a story on that. We'll show it right now. Seems appropriate, right? We'll go transition into that perfectly. And then on the flip side of that story is a story about Uber. And this weekend, Uber drivers across the country are thinking about striking. We'll talk about that story on the flip side. So take a look at first the flooding in California.
Has done this to Southern California. Look at that. Did you see this video out of Southern Cal? Severe flash flooding sends water and mud onto Interstate 5.
Yeah, have you seen the pictures? I'm guessing, and we have them for you this morning. People trapped in their cars, the mud reaching the roof. And now the same storm is making its way to the valley.
So we have Gigi Gracietti joining us from our sister station in LA this morning. Good morning.
Well, good morning. Quite a mess today as the cleanup starts. This is more flash floods are predicted for this afternoon. Take a look. We saw this unfold yesterday from our helicopter here in Los Angeles, but now we're getting a ground's eye look at the damage. This is a road near Elizabeth Lake, and you can see these cars that were caught up in the flash flood. Drivers telling us that 1 minute the skies were blue, and then suddenly they opened up, and that storm came pouring down, catching them here as the the mud came down from the hills. Now, there was a big fire in this area last year, and the foliage has not grown back, and that's what triggered these mudslides. We also saw funnel clouds, golf ball-sized hail, more mudslides and flooding, everything in the Antelope Valley just outside of Los Angeles. This is the product of what the National Weather Service is calling Gigi Graciette. We'll send it back to you.
All right, Gigi, thank you very much. Wow, and if
Isn't
you've
that
ever,
incredible?
a lot of us go to Southern California. We know what I-5 is.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it's from
as far south as Tijuana.
Tijuana, all the way up to on your way to Vancouver, British Columbia.
Yeah,
you know,
the Canadian border.
Canadian border. That's like major, and that is like the major thoroughfare for San Diegans to get to Los
LA.
Angeles and back and forth. And it's just always full of cars and traffic.
It's
and
busy
now
as
with
it
this
is.
mud and oh my.
And the road is, you can't even tell it's an actual street. It's just so,
Wow.
the mud is incredible. So folks are talking about that story, but they're also talking about a couple of other things. First thing trending this morning, we all know that Uber, Lyft, things like that, they are very popular apps that folks use maybe to hitch a ride out to dinner with friends. You're having a drink maybe or something like that. You don't want to drink and drive. So the deal is now is there could be a 3-day strike, possibly starting today. Some of the Uber drivers are claiming that, they're not getting paid enough.
All right, so here when I hear about this, I think, wait a minute, hold it, time out. I thought Uber drivers were independent contractors.
Uber drivers.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought they were paid individually.
No, they're paid on a weekly basis by Uber as an independent contractor. And so the deal is at the end of every week, everything you pay through the app goes to the company, and then the company cuts them a check.
So what if you give them a tip in person?
You could do that.
Sure, you could.
help
And
them
if
out.
they're independent contractors, each one of them is going to decide if they're going to take part in this anyway.
Sure, they
I
don't
would
have a
think-
right to strike.
I would think the majority of them would say, I'm still working this weekend.
Yeah. I mean, what organization is there? Is there an organization of Uber drivers, like a union or something, that they got together and decided they're going to go on strike? Or are they calling each other and say, don't go to work today?
I think they're doing that.
Well,
yes.
this is ridiculous.
So it's not necessarily anything having to do with the union.
How many of those Uber drivers are forced to do that?
I'll tell you the other thing that's interesting about Uber is there was a story yesterday that they're going to get into the delivery business big time now.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you're waiting for that package.
Right.
If an Uber driver can get it to you faster than a more traditional company.
Yeah, not just
Go
that, but
for
we
it.
had a story earlier this week about Amber Alerts. That they're actually going to.
That's right, yeah.
Or what they do actually. Have you guys been used Uber or Lyft or
I've
anything
never,
like that?
no, but I no.
Okay, so you pop in and they're usually operating off their phone, and you call them, everything's text-based,
Sure.
and then they put the map inside the phone.
Yep.
So the deal is, we all hear Amber Alerts, we've heard the beeping on our phones,
Yeah.
the alerts go off. If they're close, they're the first ones.
That is the latest. The Uber kind of controversy over the weekend. A lot of people are talking about this in the chat room, so we will talk about it for a little bit here. Do you think Uber is fair as far as competition for the taxi drivers? A lot of people say Sid's asking, has anyone used Uber? Is it cheaper than a taxi? I've used Uber a couple of times, and I can say that it is cheaper than a taxi, and it's just very much more convenient. You just get on the app and tell them where you are, and they come to pick you up. It's really, really great, because I don't think here in Arizona you can hail a cab. I think you got to, if you see one driving, you can't just flag it down like you can in other cities. So with this app, it's just really big, I think, for Arizona and the rest of the country here. So let's continue talking about this, though, since you guys are talking about it. Rachel says, my neighbor who is an Air Force soldier is an Uber driver. I think it's sad he has to do that as a second job. Well, at least he is able to get a second job too, though. Some people are looking for second work and can't find it right now, so yeah, but Uber is it's convenient, just like anything else with those app systems that they have out there.
Yeah.
It is cheaper, though, than a taxi, I would say. Just from my personal experience, it's very much more convenient, too, as well. I mean, to give you, I went from Scottsdale to downtown Phoenix for $20. And you know how fast in a cab, how fast that meter, I mean, as soon as you open the door, it's $3. And then you know how that fast that meter goes in a cab. I think if I took a cab from Scottsdale to downtown, I'm thinking it would be 35, 40 bucks for a cab. That's just my thoughts on that. Caps is wondering, what about the taxi industry? Well, they're free to make an app too. Why aren't these taxi cab companies coming out with a similar app? They could do that, but I don't see them doing that. And because of that, they're losing out. So you really can't complain if you're the taxi industry. You got to compete. And right now they're not competing. They're just stepping down to Uber right now, kinda, and complaining. They need to stop complaining and competing. Don't you think? I mean, if you were in the taxi business, wouldn't you want to have a similar type of app? It just seems, and lower your rates a little, taxi. I mean, $3 to open the door? It's crazy. It's crazy. And the demands now that some Uber drivers are making. Let me get you some info here on this supposed strike that is going to be happening over the weekend, but it doesn't seem like it's very organized as more union situations would be. I'm going to get you this info here because some of the demands these Uber, they're trying to turning it into a cab system now. Let me get you that info, guys. All right, so here, oh, wrong one. Okay, this is what some of the drivers for Uber are demanding. A 60% rate increase for Uber X rides. Now that is the most basic ride that you can get. Uber X just means that you could get picked up in any vehicle. They do have Uber Black cars. That's a little bit more expensive, but you're getting picked up in a Lincoln or a Cadillac, a black car. But for these Uber X, that's what the majority of people do because it's just cheaper and it's there's more of them, so it's easier to get a car. But they also want a $7 minimum fare, so basically $7 to open the door at least, a $7 cancellation fee, and an option for users to be able to leave a tip on the app. What do you think about that? I think that would greatly diminish the power of Uber, and I don't think they would ever agree to those terms. Let me know what you guys all think on that. Cap says taxis are tied down by laws. Change the laws. Yeah, so this is a very interesting topic that you guys continue to talk about on the stream. We appreciate everybody watching. I'm just going to change a little lower third here to talk about so if people are joining us, they know what we're talking about. Give me 1 second. Yeah, so it's very interesting though, right? You just don't know what it would be like with this supposed strike that they would do. And if I'm an Uber driver, I'm going to use this weekend. Really maximize, because maybe some of my competition of other Uber drivers are not on the roads, and maybe I can pick up a couple more people that maybe I wouldn't be able to. Patio says, I wouldn't go out of my way for $7. Well, that's the minimum. $7 to open the door, basically. think the taxi industry, though, needs to stop complaining and start competing. Brown says, and therein lies the fight. Union doesn't want to bring down the rates to match Uber, but Uber doesn't have to play the union game. And what Uber does is they kind of just sneak in and swipe right into the into a market and then just make a stronghold in it. Uber has really changed the game as far as getting cars or getting service. So it's a very interesting topic that we are discussing right now on Fox 10 News Now. We'll get you caught up on all the local headlines and national headlines coming up in just about 10 minutes. We'll try to get you an update on that Houston accident with the scaffolding accident. And then about 11:02, President Obama will be speaking with the South Korean president as well. We will bring that to you live like we always do with Fox 10 News Now streams. When things are happening live, we will take that to you. Kinsey coming up a little bit later in the afternoon, and then I'll be back on from 4 to 6:30 today. So it's going to be a great day for a lot of news and lots of talking content, including right now what we're talking about, possibly an Uber strike across the country. Drivers are just fed up, some of them, and that's why they want to plan a strike. Drivers are demanding 4 things. They want a 60% rate increase for UberX rides, a $7 minimum fare, a $7 cancellation fee. I will give them that. You know, a lot of times these people get these, they want to ride and then they try to cancel it. So up the cancellation fee so it'd be more of a negative connotation if you did want to cancel on them while they are en route to get you. And then an option for users to be able to leave a tip on the app. That is what Uber drivers, some of them, are demanding. And I don't know about the tip option. The great thing about Uber is that everything is built in, right? So the drivers know that as soon as that car stops, you get out of the car and you're done. With the app, then you'd have to put something. You go back to your phone and put something on there. It would just blow the whole experience in my way. So I would not want to see a tip app on there, or a tip, add-on for the app. Patio Heat never utilized Uber, but my impression is that it's a group of people traveling and picking up someone on their way. Not quite. It's pretty much you're getting a cab. And it's always a nicer car than a cab. So that's why a lot of people like Uber too. It's always a nicer car than a taxi. So you got that. Let's catch you up, guys, on some other headlines that, of course, that was a fun talk. That was a good talk. The U.S. Airways final flight is happening today. I'll show you that story right now.
American Airlines, basically, it's going to be completed now. The final U.S. Airways flight will take off. And you think about this, this is an airline that started as America West Airlines back in the 1980s. Then they merged with U.S. Airways, and today, they're no more. Anita Roman joins us live at Sky Harbor. Anita.
Yeah, good morning. U.S. Airways has called the Valley home since 2005 when it merged with America West. Well, that's all changing. Take a look behind me. You see all of these people heading into the security checkpoint here at Gate 8, Phoenix Sky Harbor. Well, some of them about to take a U.S. Airways flight for the very last time. The official final flight making its way through the Valley tonight. Flight 1939, named for the year U.S. Airways was founded, and it will fly from across the country and back. It takes off from Philadelphia at 10:05 Eastern Time. It will land in Charlotte, North Carolina, and then head here to Phoenix, expected to land at 4:01 p.m. There will be a celebration at Sky Harbor for the plane, and then it'll leave Phoenix at 5:10 and head to San Francisco. From there, it will fly back to Philadelphia, landing at 6:18 local time tomorrow morning. So we're being told there really won't be much of an impact on travelers today, but some people having a little bit of confusion. Take a listen.
As long as they have a system that people don't get confused, like especially when you're running out of time, you don't know where you go.
It's just a little bit of confusion here at the kiosk. We wound up going over there and getting a ticket off of them. I wound up getting the last seat.
Oh my gosh.
I think I'm in the very back of the plane, which is fine. It's better than walking to Denver.
All right, so extra staff will be on hand today to guide passengers to U.S. Airway ticket counters and U.S. Airway reservation systems websites scheduled to go dark tonight. So American airline flights will continue to operate from the A and B gates in Terminal 4, as you see here. So pretty busy at the gates this morning, but U.S. Airways won't be completely fading into history just yet. It'll take American Airlines about a year to change all of the planes physically, to see those physical changes. So you'll still see a few U.S. Airway planes out there. My goodness, flights, planes, we're getting confused. But all of that changing today. Back to you.
All right, so that is the latest on U.S. Airways, and the final flight that is happening today will be in Phoenix a little bit later, around 4 o'clock our time. Want to catch you up on the latest headlines. Houston, boy, there was just a horrible, horrible accident. Let's go to it right now. And you are looking at live aerials in Houston of a scaffolding accident at a construction site for a residential complex. Happened about 9:10 this morning. We did learn that 4 workers were hurt, 2 with serious injuries being taken to hospitals, and 2 others that were treated at the scene. But this is live images in Houston. And we're just hoping for a speedy recovery, obviously, for those workers, as they were just trying to do their job. They were just trying to do their job on a Friday morning, and then tragedy struck in Houston. We'll be updating you all morning long and afternoon on this story, of course. Other stories, sexy Halloween costumes for moms. That's going to be up a little bit later. That's a fun little piece. And then I also, guys, have the top holiday gifts that you can get for kids. I know we're already talking about the holidays, but you know it's coming. I do have the top holiday gifts that are going to be the hottest gifts to get. And I'll make one hint. One of them has to do with Elmo. Once again, Elmo is in the mix for the top gift for the holidays. Yes. And then, today, the State Fair opens, and it's opening in just an hour. We're going to have the latest on the headlines and all the entertainment that you can get and all the food that you can try to just chow down at. And then in a little bit, of course, we will be going live to live aerials. Not aerials, I'm sorry. We're going to be going, I'm looking at different shots that were changing on my screen here. And it was aerial, and that's why I said it. But no, we are going to go to President Obama and the South Korean president in just a little bit. Once that media event happens, we will bring that to you live right here on Fox 10 News Now. Appreciate everybody watching the stream. I know it's been a little choppy from this morning. We appreciate everybody sticking with us this morning. I'll be with you until about 12:30, and then Kinsey's going to come on and showcase her top stories that she wants to feature for the day. And then I'll be on about 4 o'clock this afternoon with a whole new show, and I'm going to hit on a lot of stuff. And yeah, we're going to be teasing that top holiday gift guide in a little bit. Yes, and Elmo is a part of the conversation once again. Can you imagine? So that is all happening. We're just an hour into the Fox 10 News Now stream. Appreciate everybody watching with us as we are updating you on the very latest. I do have a story that I want to show before President Obama takes his stage in the White House. We have the very latest on the NAU shooting. Remember, it just happened a week ago. Hard to believe it was just a week ago, though.
With American Airlines, basically, it's after beginning the merger process.
Looks like I don't have that right now for you. So that is another tease that you'll be seeing in just a little bit. But let's head on up back to that breaking news situation in Houston. Happened just about 9:10 this morning, our time, 11:10 local time, with a huge scaffolding accident. We're working to get you guys the very latest as it comes of this story. 4 people were hurt, 2 seriously, and 2 were treated at the scene. This happened just really close to Minute Maid Park, home of the Houston Astros. This is an apartment complex that is under construction, a 7-story building, which looks like very beautiful. You just gotta think about it when you look at the scene here, how loud it must have been when this accident unfolded. Wow. Truly a tragedy at this complex this morning. Truly a tragedy. Here is a live look at our beautiful, beautiful sky right now. And as you can see, some clouds moving in. We're possibly going to be getting some rain a little bit later this afternoon and into the evening hours, and maybe even into the weekend. Corey McCloskey has the very latest.
All right, off we go, folks. So we've got lots to talk about, and there is plenty of weather going across the west. Some in Arizona, a lot in California. We'll get you in close here and show you what we're talking about. We've got showers here really kind of along I-40 from really east to west across the state. And some of that rain is becoming a little bit heavy at times as you get out west toward Kingman. But California has really been pounded with some tough times over the last 24 hours. Their commute home last night was rough. Mudslides. I-5 is closed up around Bakersfield. So if you've got plans to get into California sometime today, if you're heading up, say, toward San Francisco, you want to think twice about Interstate 5. You got to call ahead. Anyway, here's our story. again, closer to home. In the valley, it's very quiet. However, as you get farther to the north, we've got some pretty good rain going on here between Seligman and Kingman there. So just keep that in mind. If you're on I-40, you'll be driving under some rainy conditions really the whole way. And once you get into California, it doesn't look a whole lot better. Old Route 66 or the 40 continues to work its way right over toward Barstow, and there is real trouble along the way. These showers have been relentless and very, very heavy. So all along the Colorado River Valley, it's going to be active today for sure. And then here around Bakersfield, these thunderstorms have been popping up all night long and much of yesterday evening as well. So I-5 is certainly going to be a problem. That's the road that takes you up toward San Francisco. So keep that in mind if you've got some California plans for today. But here in Arizona, our rain is going to become heavier as the day wears on, and then into tonight, that's when we expect to see the heaviest showers, scattered thunderstorms as well. But for now, the valley's quiet, 78 degrees with the southeast breeze at 7. The usual high, 89, and there's your record, 101, that coming on this day in 1991. And a quick peek at temperatures across the valley and beyond shows lots of 70s out there. Gosh, we just cannot seem to break down into the 60s, and that's really where we ought to be at this time of the year, mid-60s for sure. But 74 in Old Town Scottsdale, Cave Creek at 76 degrees, and then 75 out there with the good guys and gals at Luke Air Force Base. So your forecast for the valley shows you this. Today we'll finally make it into the upper 90s again. Nobody wants to be there, but it's going to be a warm one. Again, showers especially later in the day, and then tonight thunderstorms expected overnight. They could be heavy at times. Tomorrow the rain still with us during the morning hours, then tapering off as we hit tomorrow night. Sunday looks like we'll probably see a bit more sunshine make its return, and temperatures next.
I like that word, sunshine returning. Gotta love that. I do have another story for you guys. It's a really cute one. A cop surprises this little toddler in Virginia. Awesome, awesome story. You guys are gonna love this one.
For young Chesley, it was a dream come true. Police cruisers curbside at her birthday party.
You want to get in the back of one?
The toddler turned 3 years old, and her one birthday wish, real-life police officers.
They let me come in the car.
Chesley's mother shared how she pulled the surprise off without a hitch.
I reached out to the local police officers and firefighters and told them, that we're having this party, and I know that they have real jobs that actually require their work, but if they happen to have a quiet day, we would love for them to stop by.
And to everyone's surprise, they did.
When they showed up, she couldn't believe it. She's like, they're coming to my party.
Prince William County Police Sergeant Eric Udell and Officer Brandon Kraft are the duo behind the dynamic cameo that even made an appearance on Facebook.
I actually had a friend that posted it on, showed me the post, so it's surprising, but it's just something that we were fortunate enough to do.
So far, the post about police granting Chesley's birthday wish has more than 2,000 likes, hundreds of shares, and an overwhelming positive response.
How important is it to kind of build that relationship at such a young age?
Oh, it's absolutely important. When you have that level of support at such a young age, it really helps carry you through. It builds that trust for further down the road.
It is a little tough wearing the badge because of what you hear on the street. However, I work for Prince William County, and I am a law enforcement officer, and I have a really good trust with the community. The community trusts us, but we want to keep that on a day-to-day basis.
And Chesley's mother agrees.
A few bad people make a bad name for so many when they're doing such great work for everyone, and they're 99.9% of them are probably just wonderful, great people who are helping us and making our community stronger, and so that's who we should be focused on.
Yeah, you really gotta love stories like that. A positive police story. We need more of those kind of stories in the news because, like they were saying, the majority of police officers are just amazing. They protect us every day, and we gotta give them the credit. So, an awesome story there. Looks like the chopper is leaving that Houston accident, but we are just going to show the last couple images before it's leaving, and you can see downtown Houston of where this It was right in the middle of downtown Houston where that accident of that horrible scaffolding accident. We'll continue to update you guys on the very latest as it comes to this accident. Boy. And it looks like that chopper is wrapping up. Sorry for that little whiplash right there. But yeah, that is a story that we will be monitoring all day for you. And it looks like the White House event is starting with President Obama and the South Korean leader. We will take that event live right now.
So, President Park welcomed me to the Blue House. Today it's my pleasure to welcome her back to the White House. Madam President, during your last visit here, you addressed a joint session of Congress, which is an honor that's reserved for America's closest friends. You noted that the founding document of both of our countries, our Declaration of Independence and your Constitution, enshrine our commitment to our people with the same words, to their pursuit of happiness. For more than 6 decades, Americans and Koreans have stood shoulder to shoulder in that pursuit. And Madam President, once again, your time here includes a visit to our Korean War Veterans Memorial. We are very grateful for that. It's a reminder that our people have fought and bled and died for one another's freedom. And I know your gestures mean a great deal to the American people and especially to our proud Korean War veterans. Now, in recent years, President Park and I have worked together to strengthen our alliance for the future, and today I want to reaffirm that the commitment of the United States to the defense and security of the Republic of Korea will never waver. Our alliance remains a linchpin of peace and security, not just on the Korean Peninsula, but across the region. And so South Korea plays a central role in America's rebalance to the Asia-Pacific, and we continued that work today. As we agreed in Seoul last year, our militaries are investing in shared capabilities, including the technologies and missile defenses that allow our forces to operate together effectively. We want to ensure that our Korean allies have the capabilities that are needed to take on greater responsibility for the defense of the peninsula and the eventual transfer of operational control of the alliance. And we're determined to maintain our readiness against any threat. Madam President, I want to commend you and the people of South Korea for the resolve that you displayed this summer following North Korea's reckless actions in the DMZ that wounded 2 of your soldiers. North Korea was reminded that any provocation or aggression will be met by a strong, united response by South Korea and the United States. Likewise, Pyongyang's nuclear and missile programs have achieved nothing except to deepen North Korea's isolation. Today, President Park and I are reaffirming that our nations will never accept North Korea as a nuclear weapons state. We will continue to insist that Pyongyang must abide by its obligations on the complete and verifiable denuclearization of the peninsula in a peaceful manner. And given the horrific treatment of the North Korean people by their government, our 2 nations will continue to expose abuses and call for accountability for human rights violations. At the same time, we do support President Park's efforts to improve relations between South and North Korea. As my administration has shown with Iran and with Cuba, we are also prepared to engage nations with which we've had troubled histories. But Pyongyang needs to understand that it will not achieve the economic development it seeks so long as it clings to nuclear weapons. In contrast, President Park has articulated a better vision, a unified Korea, free from the fear of war and nuclear weapons, and that's a vision that we very much support. Beyond the peninsula, President Park shared her proposal, the Northeast Asia Peace and Cooperation Initiative, to build greater cooperation among the countries of the region, and we welcome those efforts. President Park and I met with Prime Minister Abe of Japan last year to address shared challenges, and the trilateral summit that President Park will host this month can be another step forward in building positive relations between South Korea, Japan, and China. With respect to trade, We reviewed the first 3 years of our KORUS trade agreement. Bilateral trade is up, including exports of American autos. We do still have work to do, and I convey that when the issues of implementing KORUS have arisen, they have been resolved, but we need to resolve them quickly. And President Park discussed the regulatory reforms that she's pursuing. Those are reforms that we welcome. And finally, I'm pleased that our alliance is increasingly a global one. South Korea is not just an important player in the region, it's increasingly an important player on the world stage. South Korea remains a partner in development in Afghanistan, a member of the coalition against ISIL, a generous donor of humanitarian aid to Syrian refugees. And now we're going even further, expanding our cooperation to some new frontiers. For example, given the increasing cyber threats to both our nations, including from the DPRK, we're stepping up our efforts to strengthen our cyber defenses and coordinating at the highest levels, the White House and the Blue House, making sure that we're in sync in dealing with that challenge. In the fight against climate change, we're accelerating our investments in clean energy. Our new civil nuclear agreement reflects our shared commitment to the safe use of nuclear power, which is a low-carbon energy source. And I want to commend South Korea for announcing its post-2020 target to limit carbon emissions through its national cap-and-trade system. As we head into the Paris conference, South Korean leadership can be an example for other nations around the world. And finally, we're expanding our cooperation to promote health and global development. Having already worked together against Ebola, South Korea has stepped up as a true leader in advancing global health security. Our development agencies will partner to reduce poverty and encourage sustainable development in Southeast Asia. And both our countries are standing together to promote education and health for girls around the world. Our Let Girls Learn campaign and South Korea's Better Life for Girls initiative. So, Madam President, thank you once again for your partnership, your leadership, and your friendship. I believe that we've shown again today that our unbreakable alliance is not just a foundation for security in the Korean Peninsula and in the Asia-Pacific region. More and more, our alliance is helping people around the world in their own pursuit of happiness, the security and prosperity and dignity that they seek for their families and for their nations. Madam President.
Mr. President, thank you very much for your remarks. I also thank you and the American people for the very warm welcome you've extended to me throughout my visit. Now, in today's summit, you and I discussed not only the Korea-U.S. alliance, but also issues surrounding the Korean Peninsula, the Northeast Asia, and a shared global agenda. During the past 2.5 years, we've been able to creatively resolve such sensitive issues as the conditions-based transition of operational control and the revision after 42 years of the Nuclear Cooperation Agreement, which evidences that the Korea-U.S. alliance is stronger than ever. Our alliance is now moving beyond a security alliance and an economic alliance and evolving into a comprehensive global alliance. The biggest threat to peace and security on the Korean Peninsula and in Northeast Asia is North Korean provocation and advancement of North Korea's nuclear capabilities. And President Obama and I shared recognition in many aspects of this issue. First, to deter any strategic provocation by the North, Korea and the U.S. will continue to strengthen coordinated efforts with the international community, including China, Russia, and Japan. And to this end, we will try to fully utilize the various regional and multilateral gatherings that are to take place. Second, with a sense of urgency and firm commitment, we have agreed to strengthen diplomatic efforts to resolve the North Korean nuclear problem. On the basis of Korea-U.S.-Japan cooperation, we will strengthen coordination among the other 5 parties, while Korea and the United States will deepen consultations with other countries, including China. Third, should North Korea demonstrate a genuine willingness towards denuclearization, we reaffirm that Korea and the U.S., along with the rest of the international community, stand ready to extend cooperative measures to the North. In our discussions, we looked beyond the current pressing issues of the Korean Peninsula and engaged in deeper discussions about the future of the Korean Peninsula. With regard to the changing situation in the Korean Peninsula and in the process of peaceful reunification, we will continue to pursue mutually coordinated policies on North Korea. At the same time, to create conditions conducive to peaceful reunification, we will also deepen high-level strategic consultations between Korea and the U.S. I would also like to thank President Obama for his support for the Korean government's ideas on peaceful reunification. Today, we adopted a joint statement on North Korea that contains our shared recognition on these related issues. The Korea-U.S. alliance is the linchpin of peace and stability in the Asia-Pacific, and there exists a synergy between President Obama's rebalancing policy in the Asia-Pacific and our Northeast Asia Peace and Cooperation Initiative, or NAPC. And I would like to thank President Obama for his warm words of welcome and strong support for NAPC. In late October, the second high-level NAPC forum will be held in Seoul, and I hope that Korea and the United States will continue to engage in close cooperation in that forum and beyond. President Obama also recognized Korea's initiative in reviving Korea, Japan, China trilateral talks that had been on hold for the past 3.5 years. And he also expressed his high hopes for the Korea, Japan, China summit that will be held in 2 weeks' time. We also shared the recognition that such meetings may meaningfully contribute to the improvement of bilateral relations in our region. President Obama affirmed that Korea-U.S. relations and Korea-China relations can be compatible and supported Korea's policies toward China. The recent summit meetings between Korea and China, the U.S. and China, and now Korea and the U.S. have served to build consensus regarding North Korea and its nuclear program. And we believe that this will play a positive role in ensuring peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula and throughout Northeast Asia. In dealing with the North Korean nuclear problem, we will also seek to strengthen cooperation between Korea, U.S., and Japan. I believe that strengthening three-way dialogue between Korea, the U.S., and Japan, Korea, Japan, and China will enable us to open new channels for stronger regional cooperation. Regional peace and stability becomes stronger when countries within the region build closer ties of mutual economic dependency. In this regard, I would like to congratulate President Obama for the successful conclusion of TPP negotiations. Korea and the U.S. already have an FTA with very high standards, and in this respect, I believe that we make natural partners in terms of the TPP. Since TPP negotiations have now been concluded, we will be engaging in closer cooperation with regard to Korea's possible participation in the TPP. Today's meeting was particularly meaningful in that it provides impetus to our efforts to open new frontiers of cooperation within the Korea-U.S. alliance and strengthens our global partnership. Korea and the United States will focus first on health security, cybersecurity, space, and Arctic cooperation, which are gaining the spotlight in this 21st century. In the realm of space, particularly, we will work to quickly conclude talks on the Korea-U.S. Agreement on Space Cooperation to establish an institutional foundation for such cooperation. In the cyber world, too, in order to enhance common response capabilities against cyber attacks, we have agreed to establish a hotline between the White House and the Blue House for cyber cooperation. On global issues, President Obama and I, on the occasion of the 70th anniversary of the United Nations, have agreed to strengthen cooperation on climate change, development cooperation, UN peacekeeping operations, nuclear security, humanitarian aid for refugees, violent extremism, and other urgent global issues. Today's summit served as an opportunity to set forth a clear vision and strategy for the future of the Korea-U.S. alliance. In forging a new Korean Peninsula, a new Northeast Asia, and a new world, I'm confident that the Korea-U.S. alliance will continue to evolve into a comprehensive strategic alliance.
We'll take a couple of questions. We'll start with Michelle Kaczynski, CNN.
Thank you, Mr. President. On 2016, now that we've seen the Democratic candidates in their first debate and how they did, and maybe you can share some of your thoughts on how much you watched of that, do you feel like the window now has closed on the vice president entering the race? And if you don't feel that it's closed, do you feel that he, in a sense, owes it to fellow Democrats to get in very soon? And also on Israel, we heard Secretary Kerry say that one of the roots of what's going on there now is frustration over settlement activity. Do you feel like that is a root cause of the violence? And do you feel like President Abbas has a responsibility to condemn attacks and try to stop them? And President Park, welcome. As you know, the U.S. has reached this deal now with Iran over its nuclear program. I'm not sure if I should start over. Were you able to hear that, President Park? As you know, the U.S. has reached a deal now with Iran over its nuclear program, but how would you feel if that were North Korea? Would you welcome attempts for such a deal, and do you feel like you would ever trust North Korea to abide by such an agreement? Thank you.
The Democratic debate was taking place at the same time as some ball games, so there was a little bit of clicking back and forth. I'm not going to comment on what Joe's doing or not doing. I think you can direct those questions to my very able vice president. The one observation I'll make about the Democratic debate was that those are all some very fine people. They share a belief in an economy that is working for everybody and not just the few. They share a belief that America has to project strength around the world by maintaining the finest military, but also by making sure that we've got a strong economy back home, that we're employing diplomacy and working with other nations wherever possible to solve big problems like climate change. So what was interesting to me was the degree to which, although there's some very real differences among the candidates, and I'm sure those will emerge, and there may be, for each candidate, some differences with my administration, overall, we very much share a vision of an economy that works for everybody and effective pursuit of America's national security through all the tools that are available to us. And I was very impressed with all of them, and I know them personally, and they're good people. Beyond that, I think it's up to the American people to decide. And so I will have a vote like everybody else as a citizen, and that ballot's private, and I don't have to share my views about that right now because I think it's important for the American people to make up their own decision. I think that the Vice President, like every other candidate, makes their own decisions about these issues, and they'll have to figure out whether it makes sense for them. With respect to Israel, obviously, we're very concerned about the outbreak of violence that initially is centered on Jerusalem, but we always are concerned about the spread of violence elsewhere. We condemn in the strongest possible terms violence directed against innocent people and believe that Israel has a right to maintain basic law and order and protect its citizens from knife attacks and violence on the streets. We also believe that it's important for both Prime Minister Netanyahu and Israeli elected officials and President Abbas and other people in positions of power to try to tamp down rhetoric that may feed violence or anger or misunderstanding, and try to get all people in Israel and in the West Bank to recognize that this kind of random violence isn't going to result in anything other than more hardship and more insecurity. And I don't think that I don't think we can wait for all the issues that exist between Israelis and Palestinians to be settled in order for us to try to tamp down the violence right now. I think my views are well known that over time, the only way that Israel is going to be truly secure and the only way that the Palestinians are going to be able to meet the aspirations of their people is if there are two states living side by side in peace and security. Those talks, which Secretary Kerry put enormous effort in, and before that, a number of our envoys and Secretary Clinton put an enormous effort in, have stalled. And I think it's going to be up to the parties, and we stand ready to assist to see if they can restart a more constructive relationship. But in the meantime, right now, everybody needs to focus on making sure that innocent people aren't being killed. And even though you didn't ask me the question, I'm just going to horn in on the question that you asked President Park, because we actually discussed Iran and what it could teach us about the situation in North Korea. These are both countries that have a long history of antagonism towards the United States. But we were prepared to have a serious conversation with the Iranians once they showed that they were serious about the possibility of giving up the pursuit of nuclear weapons. And I suspect President Park agrees with me here that at the point where Pyongyang says we're interested in seeing relief from sanctions and improved relations, and we are prepared to have a serious conversation about denuclearization, I think it's fair to say we'll be right there at the table. Now, whether even if they made that gesture, they would then be willing to subject themselves to the kind of rigorous verification regimes that we've set up with Iran, particularly given their past violations of agreements. That's a separate question. But we haven't even gotten to that point yet because there's been no indication on the part of the North Koreans, as there was with the Iranians, that they could foresee a future in which they did not possess or were not pursuing nuclear weapons.
Just to be completely clear, do you agree with Secretary Kerry on the role of settlements in leading to the violence?
I don't think that's what Secretary Kerry said. I think what Secretary Kerry said is that we have to end the violence, that Israel has a right to prevent its citizens from being subjected to random violence, that all parties have to lower the rhetoric, that the religious sites that are so important to three of the world's major religions inside of Jerusalem need to be respected, and that the status quo that allowed shared worship in and around these spaces needed to be maintained. And then I think as an addition to those statements, what Secretary Kerry said is that the atmosphere in which there's so much tension and suspicion between Palestinians and Israelis obviously creates the potential for more misunderstanding and triggers. And that's something that has been true now for decades. And if we can make progress there, obviously, it's going to help. But there's not a direct causation here, and what we do need to make sure of is that we're focusing right now on ensuring that innocent people aren't being killed.
With regard to the Iran agreement and whether it could be applied to the North Korean situation, I think that was what the question was about. Now, if you look at the Iran negotiations and how it was concluded, how you reached an agreement, we saw the United States and the U.S. leadership lead the whole process, and we had other countries that also made concerted efforts. We had international efforts that came together that made this possible, and I think that's a very important lesson that we need to take away from this. Now, if you look at the North Korean nuclear problem, we do have international cooperation in that area. We have China and Russia that are also all vehemently against North Korean nuclear capabilities. So we do have some international cooperation there. But the difference between Iran and North Korea might be something that President Obama just said. I totally agree with him. What's important here is that you need to have this genuine willingness on the part of North Korea that they will give up nuclear capabilities. This might not be a perfect example, but you can take a horse to the trough, but you can't make it drink water. There is a saying. So it's the same thing here. North Korea has to come to its own conclusion that it is genuinely willing to give up nuclear capabilities and become a full-fledged member of the international society. They need to have that. If they don't have that, then even if we have international concerted efforts, then we won't see a conclusion to these negotiations or talks like we saw with Iran. So that's a big difference that I see here.
Who do you want to call on, Madam President? They all seem very capable.
네, 동아일보 박민혁 기자입니다.
I'm Bang Min-hyuk from Donga Daily. Now, the Korean Peninsula trust building process has been the basis of the Korean government efforts to improve inter-Korean relations. But despite these efforts, North Korea has really not changed its attitude towards developing nuclear missile capabilities. Now, in the second half of your term in office, how do you plan on steering inter-Korean ties? And one more. Now, from your visit to China in September, we have been seeing you say that you want to see unification of the Koreas. Do you really think that this will be possible during your term in office? And I have a question for both of you, actually, finally. In Korea, they say that you see each other often and you start to grow fond of each other. Now, this is your fourth time meeting as a summit meeting, and you also see each other a lot at multilateral talks. So I just want to ask, have you grown closer?
마지막 질문부터 답.
Now, let me answer the last question first. Then yes, the answer is yes for me. So let me continue with my answers to your question. Now, the Korean Peninsula trust building process, basically we have this principle. Now, we will be very sternly and decisively dealing with any provocations, but we're also leaving the door open for a dialogue and will continue to make efforts to build trust. So this is the basic principle. And this is the basic underlying foundation of all our North Korean policies. In August, there was a North Korean provocation in the demilitarized zone, and we stuck to this principle and applied it to the situation. And we were very firmly responding to this situation, and as a result, we were able to reach the August 25th agreement between the two Koreas. So we had this vicious cycle where North Korea kept on provoking us, and then we just rewarded it, and it went on, and we want to stop this. And we are very clear that our North Korean policy line will not change just because North Korea continues to provoke and threat us. Now, the Korean government will try to smoothly implement the August 25th agreement, and we seek to put into place concrete measures for reconciliation and cooperation in an effort to maintain this momentum for improved inter-Korean ties. Now, in the past, some people, you might have thought that, well, if you just let some things slide, won't you get along better? But if you look at the results of that attitude, they really weren't very good. We need a principled approach, and this principled approach might make it difficult for the time being, the immediate time being, but that is where improved relationships will actually start. That is my belief. Now, reunification is something that no one can really predict. Now, in the summit earlier, too, we talked about Germany and how the Chancellor Kohl said that German reunification would happen in 10 years' time. But then 3 days later, the Berlin Wall came falling down. So it's really something that's very unpredictable. But no matter when it happens, for us, we need to be prepared. I think that is the most important point for us. So for any circumstances, we need to be prepared, and we are making efforts in this regard. Now, we do have a reunification preparation committee that are looking into the practical aspects of reunification, how we prepare for it. But reunification is actually not just between South and North Korea. It also affects the greater international community. So we need to also look at our neighboring countries, and we need to create an environment throughout the world where there's consensus that people agree that, yes, reunification is needed, and this will be good for the region, for peace and prosperity. And we need to be able to tell our neighbors and the greater world that reunification is a good thing for the region and the world. And we will continue to make efforts in this regard as well.
I was impressed the first time I met with President Park, and just have become more and more impressed with her leadership, the clarity of her vision, and she has not only been a great partner to us, but I think has helped to continue Korea's broader role in global affairs. And so I'm very proud to be working with her, and I think our strong relationship is also a reflection of the extraordinary friendship and close relationship between the American people and the Korean people. Carol Lee. There you are.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now that your administration has said that Iran very clearly violated a UN Security Council resolution with its recent missile test, what are the consequences for that going to be? Would you be able to accept additional U.S. sanctions against Iran? And given this missile test and Iran's actions in Syria, how concerned are you that they're being this aggressive before they've even gotten the billions of dollars that they're supposed to get under the nuclear deal? And if I could quickly ask you if you could comment on the deal that the U.S. and Russian militaries have reached. Does this mean that Russia and the U.S. are going to be at cross purposes in Syria going forward? And if you could, are you disappointed that Secretary Clinton opposes your trade deal, particularly given that your administration has not released the final draft? And President Park, you recently appeared in Beijing with the leaders of Russia and China. What message were you trying to send to the U.S. with that appearance?
All right. I got to write these down, Carol. Iran. What was the second one? Russia military. And Hillary. And got it. Whew. All right. Let's see if I can. Take these in turn. With respect to Iran, Iran has often violated some of the prohibitions surrounding missile testing. And our position with respect to UN resolutions, prohibitions, and potential sanctions are unchanged with respect to their to missile programs. And this is something that I made very clear during the debate around the Iran nuclear deal. The Iran nuclear deal solves a specific problem, which is making sure that they don't possess a nuclear weapon. And it's our best way to do that. It does not fully resolve the wide range of issues where we've got a big difference. And so we are going to have to continue to put pressure on them through the international community and where we have bilateral channels, through bilateral channels, to indicate to them that there are costs to bad behavior in the region and around the world. But we're not going to do that more effectively if they're also on a separate track pursuing a nuclear weapon. With respect to their actions in Syria, as I've said before, they're just doing more of what they have been doing for the last 5 years, as is Russia. And it's an indication that their basic premise, their basic theory about how to solve Syria has not worked and will not work. I mean, their preference originally was, we will simply send arms and money to Assad and he will be able to clamp down on dissent. And when that didn't work, they directed Hezbollah to come in and prop them up and sent in some of their own military advisors. And that did not work. And now the Russians have come in, and Iran is going to send more people in. But it's also not going to work because they are trying to support a regime that, in the eyes of the overwhelming majority of the Syrian people, is not legitimate. And our goal is, even as we double down on going after ISIL, is to continue to cultivate relations with a moderate opposition that can serve as a transition to a new government inside of Syria, and that we continue to have a process of getting the Iranians, the Syrians, and the Iranians, the Russians, the Turks, the Gulf countries, and all the other interested parties to sit down and recognize we've got to have a political transition if we want to end the humanitarian crisis and save the structure of a unified Syrian state. With respect to Russia, the only understanding that we've arrived at is how do we deconflict in the event that our planes and their planes might be occupying similar space over Syrian skies. So in that sense, we've arrived at an understanding and some channels for communications. Where we will continue to differ is in the basic set of principles and strategies we're pursuing inside of Syria. President Putin believes that if he continues to do what he's been doing over the last 5 years, and that is prop up the Assad regime, that the problem will be solved. Our belief is that we have to go after ISIL and violent extremist groups, but the magnet that the civil war there is serving in bringing in foreign fighters and recruiting people to this extremist cause will only go away if we're able to get a political track and a legitimate, inclusive government inside of Syria. So there's no meeting of the minds in terms of strategy, but my hope is that as we continue to have these conversations, and as I suspect Russia starts realizing that they're not going to be able to bomb their way to a peaceful situation inside of Syria, that we'll be able to make progress on that front. And with respect to the trade and how Hillary views trade, I'd have you direct questions to her. I mean, here's a general proposition, guys. During the course of what will be a long campaign, I probably won't be commenting on every single utterance or decision that the various candidates make, because I think that it is natural and proper for candidates to run on their own vision and their own platform. And what's encouraging is the fact that I think everybody on that stage at the debate affirmed what I've said in the past, which is we agree on 95% of stuff. and on the basic vision of a country that is building out our middle class, is making sure that everybody who works hard gets a shot, that believes immigration strengthens us rather than weakens us, that believes that people should be treated fairly and equally. The vision of the Democratic Party that I've fought for is one that is broadly shared by all the candidates. There are going to be some areas where they differ at any given point. Now, I'm happy to make the case once again for the trade agreement itself. And I hope, Carol, you take the time to read it, because what you'll see is that it meets the promise that I made. The most progressive, highest standard trade agreement that we have ever put forward, that deals with chronic problems like child labor or forced labor and is enforceable, that makes sure we are upping our game in the Asia-Pacific region on the environment and is enforceable, that protects intellectual property, that is the wellspring of innovation here in the United States, that makes sure that our businesses are treated fairly when they invest in other countries, that opens up markets. Keep in mind, we have some of the lowest tariffs in the world already. So we're already seeing goods and services being sold by other countries here, and the countries that are part of TPP have significantly higher tariffs. For us to be able to get those lowered, just the example of Japan, where they slap on 10, 20, 30, 40% taxes on some of our goods and services, for those to come down, and in the case of U.S. manufacturing goods, those tariffs being eliminated completely, that's a big deal. So I'm sure that we'll continue this debate as we post the actual terms of the agreement and Congress has a chance to review it. I'm pretty confident I'll be able to persuade a whole lot of people once they see the outlines of the deal that it's the right thing to do. And as President Park indicated, there's a geopolitical reason for us doing it as well. We want those of us who already have high standards to make sure everybody else does too, because that's going to make our businesses more competitive. It's going to put our workers in a better position so that they're not undercut by low wages or forced labor, that their plants don't suddenly shut down because we've got environmental laws that other countries aren't following. It's the right thing to do. I think what we'll be doing is we'll review, as we have in the past, any violations of UN resolutions, and we'll deal with them much as we have in the past. So what I've been very clear about from the outset is that although we are eliminating or suspending, effectively, sanctions related to the nuclear program, subject to snapback if we see violations there, that sanctions that are related to ballistic missiles, human rights violations, terrorism, those we will continue to enforce. And that's not just unilateral sanctions on our part. Our expectation is that there will be continued international consequences where UN resolutions are violated.
Well, it was a very long answer, and I kind of forgot the question that was asked to me. Oh, yes. I think the question about my visit to Beijing and what kind of message that I delivered. Now, I met with President Xi in China, and I also met with the leaders of Russia. And North Korean nuclear issue in our region, in Northeast Asia, and even the world, it's a very large threat. And this is something that we need to make concerted efforts to resolve. And I had dialogue on that topic with them. And we also talk about the security threat and also the North Korean nuclear issue from the standpoint that from the Korean Peninsula and to Eurasia, throughout Eurasia, we all want to grow together. And there's so many possibilities there. But right in the middle, blocking our way, is North Korea. And because of that, the growth potential of the whole of Asia and Europe is being damaged a lot because of North Korea's ambitions in terms of nuclear. So that was my message that I had for the leaders that I met in Beijing. And they agreed with me in terms of my remarks about North Korea's nuclear problems. And we all agreed that we needed to make efforts to resolve this issue.
안녕하십니까.
I'm from Yonhap News TV. I'm Yoon Seok-lee. First, I have a question for President Obama. Within the United States, with regard to the Korea-U.S. alliance, there are some people who are concerned that there are some cracks. What do you see? And in this situation, President Park has visited the United States. What is the significance of her visit? I also have a question for President Park. Now, through this visit, you have said that you would like to open new frontiers of cooperation, and I'd like to hear some details on that, please.
Actually, I don't see any cracks in the relationship at all. I would argue that the U.S. ROK relationship is stronger than it's ever been, that the alliance is on firmer footing than it's ever been. Across the spectrum of issues, military, economic, people-to-people, scientific, development, global issues. We have excellent relations with the government. Our communications is strong. Our vision of a continued robust alliance that can deal with any contingency is not just given lip service to, but we invest in on an ongoing basis. Our vision of what we need to do to see improved relations with the DPRK. We have similar outlooks. And so I actually feel very good about where the relationship between the United States and Korea are. I think what's interesting, and this might connect to the earlier question that Carol had, is sometimes there's a perception that if President Park meets with President Xi, that must cause a problem for us. Well, President Xi was in this room eating my food, and we were toasting and having a lengthy conversation. We want South Korea to have a strong relationship with China, just as we want to have a strong relationship with China. We want to see China's peaceful rise. We want them to be cooperating with us in putting pressure on the DPRK. We want to be working with them to uphold international norms and rules of the road. So there's no contradiction between the Republic of Korea having good relations with us, being a central part of our alliance, and having good relations with China. I think, as I communicated to President Park, the only thing that we're going to continue to insist on is that we want China to abide by international norms and rules, and where they fail to do so, we expect the Republic of Korea to speak out on that, just as we do, because we think that both of our countries have benefited from the international norms and rules that have been in place since the end of World War II. And we don't want to see those rules of the road weakening or some countries taking advantage because they're larger. That's not good for anybody, including South Korea. Obviously, given the size of China right there on your doorstep, if if they're able to act with impunity and ignore rules whenever they please, that's not going to be good for you, whether that's on economic issues or security issues. So again, I think there we have a shared interest, and my hope is that as a consequence of the outreach that President Park has done, the outreach we do, the interactions that we have with Japan and resolving some of the historical challenges that exist there, that we can create in Northeast Asia the kind of cooperative, forward-looking relationship among all countries that will be good for our children and our grandchildren.
With the United States, we are looking to open new frontiers in cooperation, and new horizons for cooperation as well. We're looking at climate change, infectious diseases, space exploration. Those are just some of the topics that we talked about. These are global issues too. And in order to effectively respond to the needs with regard to these issues, I believe that we need a very close cooperation between Korea and the United States. Now, these issues need our attention in terms of cutting-edge technologies and new industries that we need to develop, and only then will we be able to approach these issues and resolve them effectively. And in that respect, I think that we need to engage in cooperation to maybe jointly develop technology in these areas. For example, we could have joint projects in smart grids or clean energy projects. And in the aerospace, we have agreed to work together to quickly conclude a Korea-US agreement for cooperation in space. So through such efforts, we have an economic alliance between Korea and the U.S. That was forged through the Chorus FTA, and we want to turn this into a high value added alliance that's ready for the future.
All right there. So that event at the White House wrapped up. President talking for a little less than an hour with the South Korean leader. I want to bring you to the most current news, and we'll head on over to Fox 10 right now for a little glimpse.
Bottom line to this whole thing, not one of them seems to have an injury that is believed to be life-threatening. Houston Fire Department specialists are using specialized equipment to scan the building for any potential weaknesses or even an inner movement that might cause a secondary collapse. This is a big construction project there in downtown Houston. Did a little research on it. This is, and ultimately whenever the project is finished, going to be a 397 unit new residential building right in the heart of Houston. Rescue workers are on scene doing an active search just in case there's anybody left, but at this point there are no reports of anybody missing. I'm Ron Hoon, Fox 10 News.
All right, Ron, thank you very much. Meanwhile, fire tears through a Phoenix business and shuts down a very busy street. The fire breaking out this morning at Custom Dental Ceramics business on 7th Street and Missouri. Northbound traffic on 7th Street had to be detoured to Missouri. Firefighters climbing on the roof of the building to vent the smoke. One firefighter was burned on his ears, and there is extensive damage to the business. No word how this fire started.
A woman's rushed to the hospital in serious condition. She had to be rescued from an SUV that rolled over. And the crash early this morning on the on-ramp to the Loop 101 from 56th Street. Now, the driver lost control. She was wearing a seatbelt. She's expected to be okay. In terms of her passenger, she was not wearing hers. She was stuck inside. Some Good Samaritans, including a paramedic, rushed to help, and police believe the driver may have been drinking or on drugs.
Hey, if you're looking for a ride tonight, it may be tough to get one through Uber. Some drivers are calling for a no-service weekend. The strike is supposed to take place from 5 p.m. tonight through Sunday night at 10 p.m. Drivers are requesting or saying that they're getting less money from the popular ride-sharing app, and they want more.
Well, today marks the end of an era. 2 years after merging with American Airlines, the final U.S. Airways flight took off today. Flight 1939, named for the year U.S. Airways was founded, took off from Philly this morning, 31 minutes late, bound for North Carolina. It will land in Phoenix about 4 o'clock this afternoon. There will be a celebration at Sky Harbor. Then it will leave Phoenix at 5:10 and head to San Francisco. It will return as a red-eye flight back to Philly tomorrow. All future flights will fly under the American Airlines banner. However, American Airlines isn't expected to finish rebranding all of those planes until late next year, meaning many flights will still have U.S. Airways logos on them.
All right, so that was some of the headlines that we've been following this morning and now into the afternoon. Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Page. Hope everybody is having a great Friday. We are just getting started here on News Now. Thank you all for watching. If you just tuning in, you just missed President Obama with the South Korean leader. Spoke for about an hour at the White House. We do have a lot of stuff to talk to you today about, including some real fun topics, including this one that's been trending online. Sexy Halloween costumes for mom. They're not quite what you think. And what we're going to get into right now, you guys been waiting long enough, because the State Fair, the Arizona State Fair, has just opened up at noon. And I got a rundown of all the fun activities and entertainment that you can expect from this year's State Fair. So let's get into it, right? Let's have some fun. Take a look at the beautiful, beautiful sights of last year's State Fair. All the great food that you can expect as well. But some of the entertainment is amazing, including tomorrow. Kicking off the entertainment schedule is the one and only Mr. Bret Michaels. Then on October 18th, Sunday, Meatloaf will perform. Then on October 21st, Rick Springfield is in town for an amazing concert. October 22nd is Sheryl Crow. Then on October 23rd, Gary Allan performs live at the State Fair. October 24th, it's pop singer Austin Mahone. October 25th, another pop group, Jack and Jack. Haven't really heard too much about them, but if you want to check them out, reserve seats for them is only $15. Then, on October 28th, Jackson Browne performs. We're just going to keep getting into it, folks, as we're telling you all about the fun activities and entertainment at this year's beautiful Arizona State Fair. October 29th, this one will be a great one. Jane's Addiction in town. $25 for reserved seating there. An awesome, awesome concert that's going to be. And then we still have more entertainment to go, including October 30th, Halloween Eve, Flo Rida performs. That should be a very, very fast-paced, adrenaline kind of act. Gotta love it. Then on October 31st, Halloween night, Third Day performs. November 1st, it's Natalia Jimenez. And November 4th is Aaron Lewis with William Elliott Whitmore. November 5th, Jason Derulo. That should be a good one. And folks, November 6th, closing it out is the one and only Hanson. Yeah, Hanson is performing. I can't believe that. So lots of entertainment. You gotta love it, folks. Lots of entertainment packed for this year's amazing Arizona State Fair, kicking off starting right now. I got some ticket prices for you guys, because everyone wants to know, how much will it cost to get into the fair? Let me get you that information. Right now it's just pulling up when I'm hitting tickets. It's just hitting it is just hitting. Well, here are some discounts, like today, October 16th. It's only $2 before 5 p.m. Just $2 before 5 p.m. And then on Saturdays, remember this, it's $2 before 2 p.m. Admission is just $2 before 2 p.m. on Saturdays. So do check that out if you guys are looking for a bargain. Then there's also opportunities where they have promotions. You can go on the website. They have read 3 books, earn 3 carnival rides for free. So lots of deals if you look for them. You gotta look for them. But you gotta really like that $2 only. And if you want that reserved seating at the concerts, you're gonna have to put up a little bit more money. But my suggestion is always go for the reserved seating. If you're going, here's the deal. If you're going to a concert, you better go to a concert. You better not be sitting all the way in back, because you might as well just listen to an album then. If you're going to go to a concert, you got to get close. That's the whole experience. You got to get close. That is my recommendation. Look at the fun rides. You got to go on some of those great rides too. Let me try to see if I could get you guys some more info on all of the fun activities that are happening at this year's State Fair. They do have a lot of food offering that I want to talk about right now, including, as always, don't you always have to go with a funnel cake at a State Fair? Yeah, they got that. Then they have this, an Oreo funnel cake. Or what about if you really want to start getting crazy? If you just want to get crazy, they have deep fried Reese's peanut butter cups. I'm going to say that again. Deep fried Reese's peanut butter cups. Oh man. Oh man. What about a deep fried Nutella at the Arizona State Fairgrounds? They got that. They have deep fried Twix, deep fried cheesecake. Now, oh man, they have a lot. But deep fried cheesecake, I don't know if my heart could take that one. Deep fried cheesecake. And then they also have bacon wrapped pork belly. Why does everything have to be deep fried or bacon with it? Oh, wow. But if, hey, like I said, if you're going to the State Fair, you might as well just go to that State Fair. Wow. Then they have pickle fries, deep fried coffee. That's a new one at this year's State Fair. Chocolate covered pork rinds. So those are just some of the options that you can do at this year's State Fair. Oreo funnel cakes, yeah. Holy moly. And they also do have special parking passes on certain days. VIP parking spots for $20. This is going to save you a lot of time. You're going to get really close to the gate with that. So they do have VIP parking if you want to feel like a VIP for the night. Get that. Wow. So we are just running along here on this beautiful, beautiful Friday afternoon now. Appreciate everybody being part of the Fox 10 News Now stream. We covered a lot of stories today, including that's terrible, terrible story out in Houston with the, I just keep looking at the food, geez, with the Houston construction site. 4 people injured, 2 serious, 2 were treated at the scene. We'll get you more details later in the day. Right now we're talking AZ State Fair stuff. Welcome. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, Rachel's saying 20 ain't bad at all for parking. No, you got it. If you're gonna go to the fair, you might as well just have some fun and drop down some money, because that's you might not be here tomorrow. At the end of the day, right? So you got to drop down some money and enjoy yourselves once in a while. We all work so hard. Let's have some fun. Arizona State Fair kicking off today, right now. You could get in for $2 before 5 p.m. So go at that action. Lots going on. We're going to continue now on to different stories. I do now want to get you the top toys that kids will be asking for this holiday season. And I don't think, I didn't really think some of these were actually cool, but I guess it's the top things, guys. So I have 15 items here that I'm going to run through. We're talking about the top holiday gifts that are already being bought up right now ahead of the holiday season. Number 1, Play All Day Elmo. Yes, Elmo is back in the holiday frenzy. One of the must-haves for kids, I guess, is this $39.99 Elmo. It's a nearly 2-foot tall version of everyone's favorite little guy, which he sings, plays, and responds to your voice. Next one. It's a gyrocopter with an HD camera. Remote control range is more than 160 feet and comes equipped with an HD camera and 2 gigabyte micro SD card, so you can begin taking photos or videos right out of the box of this drone. So kids are asking for drones. That's how much things are differing right now, right? From like 20 years ago, people wanted like video games and stuff like that. Now it's, I want drones. So we got that to look forward to. Then this is interesting to me. Ticket to Ride is a board game, and it's a hot commodity. It's number 3 on the list. It's an old-fashioned board game. It's about a cross-country adventure game for ages 8 and up, where the object is to see the most cities in North America in just 7 days. So that's great. You know, at least it gives you some entertainment and then some knowledge as well. Awesome. Number 4 is a Disney Frozen karaoke. You know Frozen was going to be in it somehow. Frozen is always, Disney always pushes out some items. So that is, with that one, it's a Frozen karaoke kind of player. I'll just skim through a little bit more. A Radio Flyer Deluxe Stair and Stroll Tricycle, okay. Girl Scout Cookie Oven. I'll go a little bit more. A Barbie Pop-Up Camper Vehicle for $79. So lots of things to keep in mind for the holiday season for your loved ones and things like that. Well, Kinsey's going to be coming in a little bit. She's going to start us up at about 12:30. Maybe she'll come on at 12:45. You know, just give her some time to get adjusted. We're appreciating everybody being part of this stream this afternoon. I do have some other stories I want to share with you before we get to one of our top talkers is the top sexy Halloween costumes for moms. We'll get to that after a couple stories that we want to update you on, just in case you didn't see it, including U.S. Airways final flight happening right now.
Basically, it's going to be completed now. The final U.S. Airways flight will take off. And you think about this, this is an airline that started as America West Airlines back in the 1980s. Then they merged with U.S. Airways, and today, they're no more. Anita Roman joins us live at Sky Harbor. Anita.
Yeah, good morning. U.S. Airways has called the Valley home since 2005 when it merged with America West. Well, that's all changing. Take a look behind me. You see all of these people heading into the security checkpoint here at Gate 8, Phoenix Sky Harbor. Well, some of them about to take a U.S. Airways flight for the very last time. The official final flight making its way through the Valley tonight. Flight 1939, named for the year U.S. Airways was founded, and it will fly from across the country and back. It takes off from Philadelphia at 10:05 Eastern Time. It will land in Charlotte, North Carolina, and then head here to Phoenix, expected to land at 4:01 p.m. There will be a celebration at Sky Harbor for the plane, and then it'll leave Phoenix at 5:10 and head to San Francisco. From there, it will fly back to Philadelphia, landing at 6:18 local time tomorrow morning. So we're being told there really won't be much of an impact on travelers today, but some people having a little bit of confusion. Take a listen.
As long as they have a system that people don't get confused, like especially when you're running out of time, you don't know where you go.
Just a little bit of confusion here at the kiosk. I wound up going over there and getting a ticket off of them. I wound up getting the last seat.
Oh my gosh.
I think I'm in the very back of the plane, which is fine. It's better than walking to Denver.
All right, so extra staff will be on hand today to guide passengers to U.S. Airway ticket counters and U.S. Airway reservation systems websites scheduled to go dark tonight. So American Airlines flights will continue to operate from the A and B gates in Terminal 4, as you see here. So pretty busy at the gates this morning, but U.S. Airways won't be completely fading into history just yet. It'll take American Airlines about a year to change all of the planes physically, to see those physical changes. So you'll still see a few U.S. Airway planes out there. My goodness, flights, planes, we're getting confused. But all of that changing today. Back to you.
All right. It's tough for all of us, Anita. Don't sweat it. Thanks. All right, let's go on to what's...
All right. Look who I have right here. It's Kinsey joining us for, well, she's going to take us all the way into beautiful Friday evening.
I am.
Yep.
I am.
Kinsey here. So, how was your day so far?
Well, I think everybody in the chat room knows that I wake up and come to work. I don't have a day before work. I wake up and I come to work. And I go home and I watch hours of the newsroom on HBO. I've hit the point of free episodes on Amazon Prime, and I'm not about to pay $10 for the 6 remaining episodes.
Oh, there we go. Well, we've had a bunch of stuff. Let me just fill you in while we're here with the.
That's what I'd like for you to do.
Yeah. So there was this big accident in Houston.
I saw that. I saw that
on
Fox National.
A construction accident.
And how they're using machines to see if there's, they're utilizing these machines to see if there's any movement, to see if there's going to be any additional collapses or if there's anybody else in there, because all of the bodies of the workers have been, they're accounted for. I think it was 6 that were taken to the hospital.
Yep.
However, they don't know if somebody was just walking past and might have actually gotten, lost in the chaos. So they're using that machine to not only determine whether or not there's going to be any additional collapsing, but they're using that machine to see if there might be any other people that might be trapped in there as well.
Oh boy! And then we're also talking about, the AZ State Fair just opened.
I've only gone once, and I went for work. I went to cover it, and I went to a Star Trek exhibit, and There was nothing about it that made me ever want to return.
Oh.
Although I did get to go around on a golf cart. If I had a golf cart at the state fair, perhaps I would participate in activities.
We were just going through some of the food items, and it just seems like there's two themes. Always.
Heart attack and
yeah,
heart attack.
heart attack and heart attack. Bacon and deep fried. They love bacon, and they love to deep fry everything. And how long do you think that oil has been there? You know, you probably want to get there early because you don't know how long that oil's been. It's just sitting there, right? I bet it's better to go early on in the state fair than later.
You know,
right?
I've never thought of it
Think
that
about
way.
it.
I've never thought of it that way. I just don't think that that's something that I need in my life right now.
Yeah. Don't need a heart attack.
No.
We don't need that hospital
Not only
visit
that,
yet.
but I need to know what I think. Maybe I'm just a cynical person, and maybe it's because I've now worked in a newsroom for so long. But can I see the process of safety if you are pulling these carnival rides apart and putting them back together?
Yeah.
What are the safety procedures? How do I know I'm going to survive?
I know. Well, that's part of the ride. I think the fun of it, right?
I don't believe that that's the fun of it at all.
I like the Himalaya. Don't you like that ride? The little carnival that just goes in a circle, but it kind of has a little
dip?
Yeah, a little dip to it.
I don't know, maybe
And then they go backwards sometimes and have like a siren.
Maybe I would go with you. That's about it.
Yeah. See, there we go.
But then I'd be like with a bottle of Lysol, just like.
Yes. Well, now's the time that I've been teasing this story, teasing it from the moment I came on at 10. I've been teasing it for 2.5 hours. I better deliver it now.
You better. And I was like, what are you talking about when I saw it on his top 5? I said, I need this. I need to know what this is.
Yahoo put together the sexiest Halloween costumes for moms, but they're not kind of what you think.
They're like silly sexy.
They're silly sexy. So we're going to bring that over to you right now. It's going to be fun, right?
Yes, obviously.
Okay.
If we're here, yes.
Here it
the
is,
water
folks.
and mud onto Interstate 5.
Yeah,
I got other. I
you
got
see
other
the
things.
pictures.
I gotta
I'm guessing.
hit that. Ooh. We heard our people talking. All right, so here is number 2. It's Drive You Crazy Carpool Mom.
And she's in her jammies, which I think, if I am correct, those jammies are like from 3 years ago, and they're from the Gap. Actually, this is a legitimate. Observation.
You came at the perfect time. We needed this insight here. Let's keep going. What about a hot mess mom?
Hot mess mom. Yeah, I mean, I can see that.
I love this. What about homeschooling
Homeschool
hottie?
Isn't that what I am? Because I homeschooled.
Yeah, you would be the homeschool hottie.
Thank you. And I mean, granted, I'm just a fur mom.
But look at this picture though, with the child in the middle.
Yeah.
Why is he trying to add?
I think he's a part of. I think he's like a prop.
Oh boy. What's this one?
I don't know. Provocative pooper scooper.
Oh.
Yeah. These are interesting. Oh my gosh, that's a onesie. I have a onesie. It's pink and it has my name on it.
A captivating camper.
I'm loving the fact that most of these mom costumes involve pajamas.
Yeah. Pouty Prego.
Howdy, Prego. Hazmat hottie. Yeah, that's kind of funny.
That's a funny one.
I think that the point of this list has to be, here are some quick DIY costumes.
Yes. Misbehaving maid.
Yeah. I think her curling iron misbehaved too.
D just rockin' says, I don't get it. These are supposed to be sexy? No, sexy and fun.
Yeah, I think that
More fun.
It's the sexy is kind of
a short order cook.
I think that the sexy is kind of a joke. We have Lucky Charms. That's Samya's short order cook.
What about This is great. Oh, and the 50 Shades of Laundry. That's a cool one.
That's kind of a cute idea. I think that the objective here was, A, we've all heard of the term clickbait.
And I helped by teasing that.
Right. So we've all heard of the term clickbait, and the sexy aspect of this is the clickbait. But I do think that the actual point is, hey, these are things you could do on October 31st at 5 p.m. and you're able to accomplish it. If you all of a sudden get invited to a party, or if you all of a sudden get invited, or all of a sudden you are on door duty and you feel obligated to dress up. These are things that you could quickly accomplish, and you can feel silly and creative. But I don't think, and actually you could make these sexy if you wanted to. I think that this was probably PG for Yahoo. But I don't think that in any way, shape, or form the lady sitting on the laundry mat stuff is sexy.
While we're talking about Halloween, I have a statement to make about Halloween, that I've been seeing a trend in kids from the years past, okay? Lately, I feel like the kids, they get up to the door, they ring your doorbell, and then they just stand there with the bag open. Don't even say trick or treat anymore.
Or please, or thank you. Do they say thank you at least?
Some do. You know, some, you could tell there's some nice kids, but some, they still have it open, and they just says, you know, it just has this look like, fill me up.
Oh my goodness.
Fill me up.
That's rude.
I want them
fill up.
And when I see that, I only give them one. But when I have some kid really excited, cute, like excitable, and says trick or treat, then I just unload. Well, what about when they're
Rosa wants to know, what are you dressing up as?
See, I'm still undecided. I'm undecided.
I've got two. I'm going as Cher Horowitz from Clueless, and I actually bought that costume.
Awesome.
And it's a really cute little plaid costume. But then I found this really great leather jacket that I wore on Monday or Tuesday, and it's a fringe white leather jacket, and so I decided I would buy a pencil skirt and a crop top and go as Cindy Mancini from the movie Can't Buy Me Love, that was filmed in Tucson, Arizona. But the star of it, Cindy Mancini, that's her character name. I can't remember her actual name, and it was Amanda something. She passed away earlier this year, so it's almost like a pop culture-y.
Yeah.
This is me honoring Cindy Mancini from my favorite movie, Can't Buy Me Love, and you would make a great Patrick Dempsey from that movie. He plays Ronald Miller. And there's this great scene where she takes Moose, like she meets him before school. Here's the plot.
Okay.
She is the most popular girl in school, and he's the biggest nerd. He is at the mall one day buying a $1,000 telescope that he mowed lawns all summer to buy, and sees Cindy Mancini trying to return a dress she borrowed of her mom's. She was not allowed to borrow this leather number that one of her friends accidentally spilt wine on at one of the cool kid parties. So he's like looking at his telescope that he's about to buy, and sees her having a nervous breakdown at the store across the way because they will not return the suede outfit that she borrowed. And so he goes over there with $1,000 and says, I'll trade you. I'll give you this $1,000 so you can buy a new outfit if you will date me at school and make me cool. And she said, this isn't going to work. Guess what? They fall in love. Spoiler alert. But there's this one scene where she has mousse right before they're going into school, and this is like their debut, and she just puts all this mousse in her hair, and then she goes like this and goes like this to his hair, and it reminds me of you when your hair gets curly.
Yes. I should do that, huh? That'd be something.
Miller, Cindy Mancini.
That would be something. Well, Kinsey, I'm gonna let you slide over here.
Okay.
We're gonna go. We're gonna be right back. We're just gonna get her all situated, and
this is called a transition.
Yeah, transition time, everybody. We'll see you in a few.
Hi all, I don't know if you can hear me, but this is Kinsey logging in. I'm setting up my computer, so I'm going to keep all this stuff up while I set up and get going. So you can see the process. Hey, while I'm doing this, I can't until I get my video player going. I just think this is more interesting than looking at the weather for 10 minutes. Hopefully. If you disagree, tell me. I'll put the weather back up. Although I do have a beautiful tower cam signal that I could show you.
I'm Carrie Lake with a look at your Fox 10 Facebook News Update. A woman was found dead inside her apartment on 30th Street this morning. Police received a 911 call from her husband. They say he heard a noise in the kitchen and found her body. He has been detained, but he has not been arrested. There were 3 children in the home and they were not hurt. A mile north of that scene, Phoenix police are also investigating the death of a man in his 20s. He was found in the middle of the street after reports of shots fired came in around 4:30 this morning. Investigators say they will be looking at surveillance video from a store nearby to see if it can give them any clues. President Obama unveiling a new plan for the U.S. to keep 5,500 troops in Afghanistan when he leaves office in 2017. The shift goes against his promise to end the war during his time in office. He says the Afghan military is still not as strong as it needs to be. Lamar Odom remains on life support. Tuesday night, the former NBA star was found unconscious at a legal brothel outside of Las Vegas. Today, reports are saying that he had cocaine in his system and had been taking an herbal version of Viagra. He is still technically married to Khloe Kardashian, even though the two have been split up for years, and it's believed that she will be making any medical decisions. And here's a look at your 10-day forecast. We are expecting clouds and rain showers to increase today and continue along for Friday and part of Saturday. By Sunday, we'll see cooler temperatures and beautiful conditions. A cool down is on the way for the remainder of the week. Be sure to join us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and send us your news and weather photos using the hashtag Fox10Phoenix. Have a great day.
All right, that's a look at Tower Cam, and we are expecting some showers today. That was Carrie Lake giving you the Fox 10 Facebook update from yesterday. And we're working with a new schedule here since Samya is currently on vacation. So let me see if I have my top 5 from yesterday. No, I don't think I do. I might have to change where I save these so that I have them for you. But I guess some of my top stories today that I was interested in is the Houston that collapse of, I guess it was an apartment building, or that it was supposed to be an apartment building, and it collapsed. Again, I saw that 6 people were taken to the hospital. The rest of the employees associated with the construction were told to meet at a hotel across the street, where they did a head count and confirmed that beyond the 6 that were sent to the hospital, everybody was there. And then they're using this machine to determine if there's going to be any more accidents and if there's any other movement inside the chaos, to see if anybody had perhaps been just walking past during the collapse and gotten trapped in, just a business person that worked around the area. Another one of my stories that, another one of the stories that I find fascinating today is that Donald Trump and Ben Carson band together to insist that CNBC only do a 2-hour debate. This we discussed at great length last night. But what the new development is here today is that CNBC agreed to only do a 2-hour debate, which is, everybody's kind of in a piffy mood over that, because they can't believe that Donald Trump has that kind of power. They don't think he should be able to have that kind of power. But I knew it would happen that way, because they need Donald Trump. I saw somebody on Fox National, Alan Combs, saying that Donald Trump would have shown up anyway, even if he threatened to boycott. I don't believe he would have. I just don't, because he doesn't need. He could have live tweeted the debate again and still had more media than the rest of the candidates. He wouldn't have even had to have shown up. So I personally think that Donald Trump wouldn't have shown up. And then they're saying Alan Combs, he just thought that the entire exchange that Donald Trump and Ben Carson did was immature, but I didn't think so. I think that it's got to be physically and emotionally exhausting to be on stage for 3 hours and have to be on completely. You have to watch every facial expression. You have to listen so closely to everything they're saying, and you have to determine whether or not you know that is in direct contradiction to something else that they've said in the past. So I wouldn't want to stand on a stage for 3 hours too, when in reality you feel like they're just milking it for the commercials. What are you really getting out of it? And then Rand Paul, they're saying, Rand Paul's people released a memo saying that the media was unfair in insisting that he was about to drop out because he's having a hard time. He's having a hard time getting donations, and his campaign is having a hard time. Rand Paul's argument is that he has young people that aren't going to donate the way that some of these giant corporations are donating to Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton has the most in her campaign than any of the candidates that are currently running for president. I think it's 30-something million. And then Rand Paul is saying, but I've got a younger demo that's not going, I don't have big corporations backing me, and I don't want them backing me. In addition to that, he's saying you're not polling the younger demo, you're polling an older audience. So how can you say that I'm no longer somebody to watch for? But his people also released a memo saying that the media was being unfair, and the media should stop targeting him, saying that he's on his way out, that he's not on his way out. But if you have to address it, then that's not a good sign either. I think that those are only 4 stories. So, and then additionally, Lamar Odom, there has been some movement. He's opening his eyes. But if you'll recall with Bobby Christina, there was similar activity. People would say Bobby Christina squeezed their hand and she opened her eyes. So it's not something I would get excited about if you are in any way, shape, or form counting on him coming out of this coma. I wouldn't say that this is the news that should convince you that it's going to happen or it's not going to happen. I would still have some patience. We do have a Hillary Clinton event. This is a town hall in New Hampshire, and I'm going to take you to that right now.
Now we know that the conventional wisdom is that elected officials cannot go up against the gun lobby because it's too powerful. But that is not true. When Congress refused to act, grassroots activists like myself took the fight to states and have passed background checks legislation and bills to keep guns out of the hands of domestic abusers across this country. And this week, in the Democratic debate, and this is good news, candidates for the highest office in this country were asked about their position on guns. And Hillary, a leading candidate for President of the United States of America, not only spoke with deep passion about the need to strengthen our gun laws, but laid out her position on the issue in great detail. And Hillary believes that some fights are too important to give up on, and this is one of them. This is not a new fight, but it's a winnable one. And Hillary Clinton has shown to be a champion on this issue, and I trust that as president, because you will be president, she would hold the gun lobby accountable, and you will fight to protect Americans from gun violence. So please join me in thanking Hillary Clinton, a true gun sense advocate.
Well, I think we can all go home now. Wow. Clay, thank you. I know, as you said, this was not easy to do, but thank you. I want more people to hear stories like that, so that this is not just some political debate about something happening far away, but people can really begin to think about standing in the shoes of those who have been victims of gun violence and trying to understand what we can all do together. You know, Clay survived that brutal, hateful attack in her own home. 90 people a day don't survive because of guns. 33,000 people a year die by homicide, suicide, or by accidents using firearms. And I think we're better than that as a nation. And I think we can do something about that. And that's why I have been talking about it, have been laying out my policies toward it. Some people say that we shouldn't talk about it. Some say we shouldn't shout about it, that I shouldn't shout about it. Well, I think we have to keep talking, but more importantly, we have to act. And we have to be willing to take on those who are not in favor of sensible gun safety measures. That includes the NRA. And it includes a lot of people in public life today who are intimidated. I think that's no longer feasible. It's no longer right. So what I have said is, yes, as president, I will push and achieve universal background check, something that the majority of Americans support and the majority of gun owners support. Sensible, responsible gun owners support it. You know, the Brady bill has kept 2 million guns from being sold into the wrong hands. Because of that background check, despite its loopholes, prohibited purchasers, because they were felons, fugitives, stalkers, domestic abusers, people with serious mental illness, have been stopped from buying a gun. So as bad as the gun carnage is, I like to think that at least 2 million prohibited purchasers weren't part of that. I also think it's critically important to close those loopholes, to close the gun show loophole and the online loophole. You know, back when the Brady bill was passed in '94, online purchases were not an issue. We now know they are. So we have to go for universal background checks, and we have to close those 2 loopholes. And I have said that if the Congress doesn't cooperate, I would use executive action to make sure that sellers are held accountable. I also believe we should close what is now being called the Charleston loophole. Under the background checks, if someone applies to buy a gun, the seller has 3 days, those sellers that are covered, to conduct a background check. And if it is not completed by the end of 3 days, the purchaser gets to buy the gun anyway. Now, the reason it's called the Charleston loophole is that the killer of those 9 people at Bible study in Mother Emanuel Church in Charleston got his gun not because he was eligible, because in fact, it was learned shortly after he was not eligible. He had a felony record. But because of this loophole, he was able to go back at the end of 3 days and buy the gun he used to kill those 9 innocent people. And then finally, we have to repeal the broad immunity that has been given to gun manufacturers and sellers in America. And which has shielded them from any responsibility for their sale of guns and ammunition or their manufacture of either. Now, just recently, there was some small glimmer of hope when a jury in Wisconsin found a seller of guns liable because of a straw purchase, which the seller clearly knew to be a straw purchase. A straw purchase is, you're not eligible, you're a felon, you've got a domestic abuse order against you, you've been committed. Remember, the shooter at Virginia Tech had been committed for outpatient treatment for mental health, still got a gun. But in this particular case in Wisconsin, the prohibited purchaser sent somebody else in with a clean record to buy the gun for him. There's video and other evidence that the seller knew that the gun was for somebody else, sold it anyway. So the seller buys it, turns it over to the real purchaser, who goes out and shoots 2 police officers, injuring both seriously. And so when the police officers sued the gun seller, the jury heard the evidence and came in with a verdict in favor of the police officers. Now, we're going to see whether or not that verdict stands up under this broad immunity that has been given to the gun industry. There's no other industry in America that has this kind of blanket permission to be reckless, to be negligent, to sell defective products even. It's just outrageous. And we have to repeal that so that those who manufacture guns and sell them are held to some standard of accountability. So I'm going to do everything I can in this campaign to not only talk about this issue and to give the platform to people like Clay, who can be much more eloquent than I ever can about why this is an important issue. But I'm also appealing to responsible gun owners. Organize an alternative to the NRA, which is nothing but a lobby for the most absolutist positions that the gun manufacturers and sellers demand. We have so many responsible gun owners. I'm not against guns. My dad taught me to shoot when I was a little girl. I've even gone duck hunting in Arkansas, standing in the cold water at sunrise. Once was enough getting up that early to stand in that cold water, I can tell you that much. But so this is not about the kind of scare tactics that you will hear from the NRA. You know, this is what they do. They just scare responsible folks into thinking that, you know, the black helicopter is going to land in the front yard and somebody's going to show up and take your guns. That is nonsense, and it needs to be called out for what it is. But the fight against the NRA should be led by a new organization of gun owners. I'm collecting names of people who are stepping up and writing, you know, about their feelings as people who enjoy hunting, enjoy target shooting, enjoy collecting, but who are sick and tired of the violence. People who are killed and injured. So I am very grateful to my good friend, your Senator, Molly Kelly. And I am very grateful to Clay for sharing what is a very painful, personal story to try to save lives. And I really look forward to working with a groundswell of people across our country who know we can do better than this. We are better than this. So with that, let me throw this open to questions on whatever issues or concerns you might have. We have some microphones, I think. So if people raise your hands, we'll try to get to as many of you as possible. I can see there's already a lot of hands up here. Let's see. The woman in the back, because that's really close to the microphone, right there.
Hi, my name's Leslie Rule, and I actually have a question about the NSA. So we have Edward Snowden. We have traitor on one end of the spectrum, and we have patriot on the other end of the spectrum. And I'm wondering where you stand in that and why you stand that way. And to let you know that I consider him very close to a patriot. I think that the information that he released is something that the American people needed to know and to have publicized. So that's my question to you.
Well, let me say this. I firmly believe that he could have gone public and released the information about the collection of information on Americans under whistleblower protection. And he could have done it within the tradition in our country that shields people who come forth acting out of conscience to present information that they believe the public should have. I do not know why, in addition to releasing the information that you're referring to, he felt compelled to steal a lot of information that by any definition had nothing to do with American civil rights, liberties, and privacy, but instead were about terrorists and what other nations, just to name two, China and Russia, do to try to gather information about us, and what our government tries to do to prevent that and to try to get information about them. So if he'd been a whistleblower, and if he had confined himself to releasing information that I think did provoke the right kind of discussion in our country and has led to some changes, which I approve of, then I think people could, across all spectrums, say, hey, thank you for bringing this to our attention, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to respond. Because he took valuable information and went first to China and then is now under the protection of Vladimir Putin, I think that raises a lot of questions about everything else he did. So I do not think he should escape having to return an answer for what he has done. And I think, though, we need to continue the balance on civil liberties, privacy, and security. It's always a challenge. And I do support what the Congress passed, the USA Freedom Act, because I think it did have some good changes, and I think we have to remain vigilant. But it's always a balance. It's a balance. It's not just all one-sided. You know, if you go too far towards security, you do infringe upon the legitimate rights of Americans, and that's what we're trying to end. If you go too far toward privacy and, civil liberties, you can leave us vulnerable, and we're trying to prevent that too. So that's the kind of hard choice balancing act that I think President Obama has been attempting to do, and I support the changes that he has been making from the executive level, and I support the new legislation that the Congress passed. Well, now just a minute, sir. Just a minute. I'll get to you, I promise. But I kind of like to go in a broad sweep. But okay? You've stood up. We'll hear from you. Where's a microphone that we can get to you? Just a minute. I mean, it's great having people so eager.
Thank you. After the recent Oregon shootings, what President Obama said was, the hearts and prayers go out, but then he talked about gun control, but he said gun control is not enough. What we need is a culture of gun safety. And I think we need to add to what we're doing.
Well, I agree with you on that. And I like to refer to what I'm advocating as gun safety measures. And the gentleman makes a very good point. Like so many of you, I'm reading news online, and I see a headline, I think it was in the Washington Post, which said something, as I recall, toddlers are killing more people with guns. And I stopped. I went, what? Why? Because the people whose homes they live in, mostly their parents, sometimes their grandparents, have loaded guns in their homes, in their cars. And children are curious. And they're picking up loaded guns. And I read the story after I was shocked by the headline. The toddler in the back seat where there was also a loaded gun, picking it up and looking at it and shooting his grandmother. And there was, it's just beyond my comprehension. And the gentleman is absolutely right. If you are going to have a gun, please exercise common sense safety and keep those guns away from children, toddlers, young kids, and teach a proper respect for guns. One of the worst cases that I've read about in the last 2 weeks was an 11-year-old boy asked to see the new puppy of the 8-year-old girl who lived near him. And the little girl, for whatever reason, said no, she didn't want him to see her puppy. He went home. He got his father's loaded shotgun. He went back and he killed her. So all I'm asking, I think, is pretty common sense. We need new legislation to close the loopholes, to remove the immunity from liability, to use technology to get instant background checks for real, not just saying it. But ultimately, people have to exercise common sense in dealing with these weapons. And keeping them away from children should be rule number one, in my opinion. So thank you. Thank you. This gentleman right there in the gray T-shirt.
Hi, I love your commitment to clean energy, but I was wondering, do you consider the extraction and use of shale gas to be clean energy? And as president, what kind of regulation would you like to see implemented for the fracking industry and the use of gas?
That's a great question, and it's one I give the Obama administration a lot of credit over the last 2 years in particular. They have been, yes, let's give the Obama administration a lot of credit for their energy and climate change policy. And they've been struggling with this. And they've begun to come out with recommended regulations, like, for example, to control methane emissions. I think you also have to have very tough water standards. And I think from talking to experts in the Obama administration and on the outside, here is what they have convinced me of, and this is the following. There are some places in our country where this extraction technique may be appropriate if we do more research and we figure out how to cut the methane emissions and keep the water clean. There are lots of other places where it is not. And part of what the federal government needs to start doing is drawing some lines and informing states and localities. And we should also never preempt states and localities from saying no. If a local government says no, not here, they should be able to do that. And part of the reason why I think the Obama administration experts have taken this position is we have to go through a transition. We have to move away from fossil fuels, including gas, but that gas can be a useful bridge, especially as we move away from coal and we move away from dirtier oil and some of the really bad alternatives. And we want to keep more fossil fuels under the ocean and in the ground. That's why I'm against Arctic drilling and why I'm against offshore drilling, because I don't think we should start that. So I'm trying to listen to people who I know care a lot about the environment, care a lot about climate change, and are trying to figure out what are the smart steps we can take. So in some instances, I can go along with it. In lots of others, I can't. And we need to be moving as quickly as possible to 100% clean, renewable energy. We have a long way to go, but that should be our goal, and we should do nothing that interferes with or undermines our efforts to reach that goal as soon as it is possible. The lady in green right there, here, this lady right there.
Thank you for taking my question. It actually is a follow-up to that. So southern New Hampshire is actually fighting a frack gas pipeline right now, which I believe that you know about. One of our biggest problems is that it's coming through New Hampshire. It's not for us. We don't need it. It's for export. One of my concerns beyond all of the issues surrounding fracked gas is about FERC, our Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which is funded by big oil and gas. What will you do to change FERC? Because right now we've had candidates come and tell us it's a local issue. It's not. We have no control. What can you do to help us?
You know, I think you've made a very important point, and I didn't really focus on this until I've been traveling around New Hampshire. And the concerns that residents have expressed about FERC really are legitimate, because the process that FERC is employing does not give enough weight to public opinion in the locations where pipelines are going through. It does not pay, in my opinion, enough attention to all of the other issues, whether they be health issues, safety issues, and the like. And so I am going to do what I can to try to make it absolutely the case that FERC has to, in any of these decisions, pay much more attention to local communities and listen to what your concerns are and do much more to evaluate whatever the consequences or the downsides of these decisions are. Because right now, their mandate seems to be only about delivery of energy at anywhere, anytime. And I don't think that's adequate in today's world. If we're going to have a climate, what? That's not. Yeah, but let's not confuse the two issues. When you say supported, they're not paid for by oil and gas. They are certainly, as a regulator for oil and gas, used to paying attention to what oil and gas industry says. I will absolutely give you that. See, my problem, though, now that people in Hollis and elsewhere have raised this with me, is that if we're going to have a national commitment to do something about climate change, FERC needs to be part of that national commitment. And that's my view on how we have to alter a lot of parts of the federal government. You know, it's not just the EPA that needs to be focused on combating climate change. Every part of the federal government needs to be focused, because I want to have a national goal. And, you know, I've said, look, I want to have, by the end of my first term, 500 million more solar panels installed. And by the end of my second term, enough clean, renewable energy to power every home in America. And if those are our goals, then it's really important that we don't have the right hand doing something different than the left hand in the old saying. So it would be my intention to, if legislative changes, regulatory changes are necessary, to undertake those, but also to appoint people who will be really focused on how everybody works toward this big overarching national goal, and not, you know, have old think. You know, there was a time when we needed more energy. People remember, some of us are able to remember, being in very long gas lines. At least I remember those days. And we were pretty much captive to Middle East oil. So we had a different mindset. But now we've got to change that. So I think your question is not only a specific one about a particular decision, but it raises the larger issue about what we're going to do to change our values, our goals. And that's what I'm going to try to do. Yes.
Secretary Clinton. So the national student debt level has reached $1.1 trillion. The average student graduating from a New Hampshire college is going to be approximately $32,000, and quite honestly, I'd be surprised to find a student in this room with that little. What are you going to do to help students graduate college?
Great question. Well, let me ask, how many people in this room currently have student debt? Wow. How many, keep your hands up, how many have ever had student debt? So, I mean, that's a pretty healthy majority here. That's a great question. And your statistics are right. We have 40 million people with student debt that now reaches $1.2 trillion. So the first and most important thing is we need to make it possible for every person with student debt, current and those who have graduated, refinance that debt. You know, that to me is the number one goal. And if you think about it, everybody else can refinance their debt. Corporations can refinance their debt. You can refinance your mortgage. You can refinance your car payment. Why is it students can't refinance their debt? And the worst injustice to me is that we've had practically zero interest rates for 7 years. And yet, I want to ask, how many of you know that you are paying an interest rate of at least 7%? Yeah. I mean, we have people who are paying interest rates far beyond what the real interest rates are. So I want everybody to be able to refinance, and then I want to do much more to get both students and graduates into
income contingency repayment plans. Now, what is that? Well, this is what I had when I went to law school. So did my husband. You know, we both borrowed money. We worked, we borrowed money. And in the loans we had, when we graduated, we both were teachers. We taught at the University of Arkansas Law School. My first job was with the Children's Defense Fund, and then with the University of Arkansas. So, as I recall, making like between $14,000 and $17,000 a year. And we couldn't have paid some big fixed rate based on a high interest rate. So we paid back as a percentage of our income on a monthly basis, and as I recall, it was like 10%. And it took, I don't know, 15 years, but it didn't have the burden that I now hear about from so many young people and their families because of the high fixed rates. And the other thing I'd really like to do more of is to make sure that people who go into what are public service, national service jobs get a lower rate, get more forgiveness faster, get a discount because they are doing something that serves their community. And then to have a date certain when your obligations end. If you've been a responsible payer and you've taken advantage of all the new opportunities that I want to provide, there will be an end point, and you can, you know, count on that. So this is a big deal to me because too many people are being held back because of this debt. And you say 32,000, I think that's one of the highest averages in the country. Students in New Hampshire are bearing. So it's a big problem for everybody, but particularly students here. And I've met a lot of them who, because of their student debt, they can't take jobs they'd like to take because they can't afford them. I met a young woman who said she had the dream job of her life in Boston, but she couldn't afford to pay her student debt and live there. So like so many young people today, she's still living with her parents. And that's nice, but you know, you deserve a chance to kind of get out there and make your own decisions about where you're going to live and where you're going to work and all the rest of it. So that's what I want to do, and I will make that a very high priority. So, okay, what does that say? Oh, you're from Mount Holyoke. Ah, a fellow Seven Sister. Does that mean you wanted to ask a Mount Holyoke question? Yeah, it did. Yeah, I know. I could see you writing and holding it up, and I had to get really close to read it. Go ahead.
All right. So my question, I actually have two, if that's okay. So you talk about empowering women, and I was wondering if you're going to do anything about human trafficking. And then my second question, which kind of goes along with college and everything else, is how else are you going to empower the youth of America?
Well, with respect to your first question, on human trafficking, I feel passionately about this and have worked on this issue since my days as First Lady. In fact, back in 2000, I worked with a coalition of outside activists and members of Congress to pass the first ever United States legislation against human trafficking. Proud to say my husband signed it, so that began our efforts on human trafficking. And I stayed focused on that as senator, and then as Secretary of State, worked really hard to do more about human trafficking around the world and still here at home. We appointed a first-rate federal prosecutor who had prosecuted some of the human trafficking cases in the United States to head the office in the State Department to take on these issues. And we also pressured through the human trafficking annual study different countries to have to change their laws, to enforce their laws. When I, as First Lady, talked with representatives of other countries, they really didn't understand why the United States was making a big deal out of this because it was part of, in their view, the culture. And now they know that they're going to be graded every year by the United States government, and that if they are having a failing grade several years in a row, they can lose aid and other benefits from the United States government. And it's our tool to try to get laws passed, to change enforcement, and actually to go after human trafficking. It remains one of the biggest sources of criminal activity and profits in the world. Sometimes we think of only one or two kinds of human trafficking. You know, the refugees flooding into Europe are in many respects a form of human trafficking. They're picked up by smugglers who often abandon them. The children and adults who come across our southern border are often treated the same way. They are, you know, their families pay money to smugglers and traffickers who, again, may abandon them in the desert, may abandon them to their fate on the long, you know, journey that they are taking. We have a lot of trafficking of people into really exploitative labor situations. Literally, people being kidnapped and put on fishing boats, being chained to sewing machines in factories. And then, of course, we have sex trafficking, where young women in particular, but even children, are preyed upon, and where poor families are convinced to essentially sell their daughters. I remember being in northern Thailand when I was First Lady, and it was before we passed our trafficking statute, and part of the reason I was there was to talk with the government to convince them to take this seriously. And I went to a hospice for young women who were the victims of AIDS after having been trafficked into the brothels in Bangkok, and then when they were ill, thrown literally on the street. Some of them would make their way back to their homes. Their families who'd been paid for them would reject them. And I remember standing by the wheelchair of a dying 12-year-old girl and having the aid workers who were taking care of her tell me her story. And then the aid worker says, you can tell the families that have sold their daughters by driving around these villages, the huts, the houses with satellites have sold their daughters. And so this is such a deep part of discrimination against women and girls, a rejection of their importance, their human dignity, their rights, that it is a deep challenge.
I'm going to temporarily break in
attitudes in many parts of the world.
to let you know that we are seeing active storms at Gila Bend, and it's headed towards Buckeye right now. So any minute now we're going to have, I'd say probably within the next half an hour, we're going to have some visuals, some storm visuals for you. But we are seeing active storms, and they are headed towards Buckeye right now. So we're going to have some probably pretty intense weather coverage for you coming up here in the future.
The world about the value of girls, and to make the case that educating a girl over the long run will be far better for the family than selling her at the age of 11 or 12 to be either an indentured servant or a sex worker. So this is an area that is particularly a concern of mine, because it goes hand in hand with the exploitation of poor people, marginalized people, and particularly girls and women in many places across the country. Thank you.
Back to handguns. My name is Gene Wojciechowski. Recently, Australia managed to get away or take away tens of thousands, millions of handguns. And in 1 year, they're all gone. Can we do that? And why, if we can't, why can't we?
You know, Australia is a good example. Canada is a good example. The UK is a good example. Why? Because each of them had mass killings. Australia had a huge mass killing about 20, 25 years ago. Canada did as well. So did the UK. And in reaction, they passed much stricter gun laws. In the Australian example, as I recall, that was a buyback program. the Australian government, as part of trying to clamp down on the availability of automatic weapons, offered a good price for buying hundreds of thousands of guns, and then they basically clamped down going forward in terms of having, you know, more of a background check approach, more of a permitting approach. But they believed, and I think the evidence supports them, that by offering to buy back those guns, they were able to, you know, curtail the supply and to set a different standard for gun purchases in the future. Now, communities have done that in our country. Several communities have done gun buyback programs, but I think it would be worth considering doing it on the national level if that could be arranged. Remember, I know after the terrible 2008 financial crisis, I think one of the programs that President Obama was able to get in place was cash for clunkers. Remember that? You know, getting them off the road, and it was partly a way to get people to buy new cars because we wanted more economic activity, and it was partly a way to get old models that were polluting too much sort of off the road. So I think that's worth considering. I don't know enough details to tell you how we would do it or how it would work, but certainly the Australian example is worth looking at. Thank you for raising that. Yeah, it's right there. Here comes a microphone.
Thank you. My name's Nicole, and I would just like to thank you for coming to Keene State today. I'm studying to be a teacher here, and so I was wondering what your thoughts are on education reform and what you plan on doing for education reform once you become president.
Well, I'm glad you're going to be a teacher.
Thank you.
And I have to say, Keene State has a well-deserved reputation for turning out educators, and I want to really, you know, applaud Keene State faculty and students. Well, I could talk about this a long time, but I'll try to be more focused. First of all, I think we have to do more to actually pay attention to what educators tell us about what will work in the classroom. And that sounds so obvious that some of you are probably wondering, why would you say something so obvious? Well, because we've been having a very vigorous debate, a contentious debate over what will work and what won't work to try to increase educational achievement among our young people. And I think the debate has gotten off base. I think it's too much about the latest fads, the latest products, the latest models, instead of taking a deep breath and actually talking to experts who have done an enormous amount of research about what really works. I want to get back to looking at what really works. And I know that there are a lot of well-meaning people who are really down on the public schools, and I just don't believe or share that. I think the public schools are one of the bedrock institutions of our democracy, and therefore, we need to do more to make them work. And so here are a couple of observations, because this is a much longer conversation, and I must say I am honored to have the support of the teachers of New Hampshire and America in my campaign. And because of that, I want to be a partner in figuring out what are the best ways forward to do a better job helping kids, particularly poor kids, particularly kids with special needs, particularly kids who come into school from literally the first day of kindergarten, you know, not as prepared as their classmates are.
Are you going to say goodbye or stop? I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to say goodbye. Okay, Mike and I are running into our editorial meeting, so I do have to let you go now, but we're going to be back in just half an hour. I believe we're going to bring you Donald Trump in half an hour, so you can get ready for that. But we've also got some storm coverage we're going to bring you as well here in the Valley. Thank you so much for spending your morning with us. We'll be back in just, I think, approximately half an hour to bring you Donald Trump coverage. Thank you so much for being with me. I will see you again in a few minutes. Bye.